Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV podcast 559. Speaking of 59, it's got to be about 59 degrees out. Loving life here in Wisconsin.
Kind of perfect, to be honest.
Not too bad. I think spring is here. Golf is in the air. Internationally, semi-locally, all over the country. I think there was like 700 or 800 sanctioned events around the country this last weekend. There's a lot of golf that was going on in some form or another. So hopefully you had a good weekend out there playing some golf, maybe installing some courses, having a ribbon cutting ceremony, picking up maybe some trash at some courses, whatever the case was. Hopefully you had a good weekend out there and all your putts stayed in.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, we'll get to it later.
I threw 4 putts this weekend.
And you made 3 of them.
You're right, I did.
So
I missed one.
That's just a guess.
I did.
Hey, 10 feet in is a good place to be.
This was 25. This is from my patio to my basket in my backyard.
Okay, now I retract. I don't believe the 75% stuff. Tonight, we're going to have PDGA rep Robert Leonard in actually just a few moments. He's going to be joining us. There has been some conversation going on about the PDGA rules and processes, updates, just how things go down. In fact, you and I had a healthy conversation just a couple days ago or a couple episodes ago about rules being applied in terms of cuts. I know that's something that's actually part of this conversation as well. Cuts, cut lines, how things of that nature can get handled, and some of the challenges, especially when you have some weird numbers. Or I don't know if they're weird numbers as much as they are.
I mean, they're numbers.
They're numbers, yeah.
What is a weird number?
That's why I was just going to say a difficult to deal with number. A difficult to deal with. Pi is a weird number.
Like imaginary numbers? Those are weird numbers. If you get like calculus and stuff like that.
That's why, yeah. Calculus is where it all ended at school for me. All right. Well, in fact, we've got other exciting stuff, including a bunch of weddings from the weekend. We're going to talk about that and whatnot, literally like whatnot, the app and a bunch of other stuff. We can talk about that later. But right now, coming in from the East Coast, let me get this title correct because it's far fancier than anything I could imagine coming up with. The Senior Policy and Compliance Officer, one Robert Leonard. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, guys. Welcome to your own. I guess welcome. I don't know why I said welcome. Welcome to your own show. I don't know why I said that.
We're all here. We're all welcoming. Yeah. It's all right. We're all PDGA, and we're all disc golfs, and we're all part of that Frisbee family. So that works. All right,
and we're all old.
Yeah, and we're all getting older. When did you join the PDGA, Robert?
Oh my God. I was in college, so like 03, 04-ish. I started playing when I was 9, so I'm at 32 years something. My go-to line is whenever I see somebody I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm like, you want to feel old? I'm playing Masters now. So
yeah. Okay. So you've been around for a little bit.
Yeah. When I get somewhere, sometimes someone's like, "Hey, John, we played together in Advanced. Remember Worlds 2003?" And I was like, "Sure," or wherever that was, and you're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "No, I don't actually remember. I promise you, I probably don't remember." But I'm glad whoever it was that always says that to me. I'm glad we played together.
See, that's how well when you get to be big time there, Johnny. You forget all those little people that you once played with, and now you're a big celebrity, so everyone wants to remember the good old days.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
they were probably good for them.
Not for your advanced career.
Not for my advanced career.
All right. Well, so tonight we want to talk about some of the not just the actual rules or proposals but I'm very interested in the procedures for how we even get to where we're having this conversation. And let's immediately start with what the policies and procedures have been, and then where are they differing in terms of how things are going to get done, Robert?
Yeah, so the previously we had the rules committee, the competition committee, and we merged those committees last year just to try to silo some of that work. And so that committee is now called the Rules and Regulation and Advisory Committee. We call it RRAC. So if at any point, like I will kind of intuitively say RRAC, I'm referring to that committee. That is a committee made up of multiple people. I'm the staff liaison to that committee, which just means part of my duties on my role on staff with the PDGA is to manage that committee, manage those procedures. It's chaired by Mike Krupicka, the former Rules Committee chair, and it's made up of a lot of really a true myriad microcosm of PDGA membership. We've got tournament directors that have done major championships, all the way down to people that have never run a tournament and just play a lot of events. And we get a lot of unique perspectives on that committee. And the simplest way to put it is that we get input from members, we get input from this committee. Maybe our event support team gets a question or a scenario at one of our events that we think, my gosh, we've never thought of that. Or we get a scenario where there's not really a clear answer, or we keep seeing the same thing happening 40 or 50 times throughout the year. We need to address it. Any of those things, it goes to the RRAC committee to discuss that and say, hey, is this something that this committee, the rules of disc golf or the competition manual, we need to address this situation. And the committee will then basic straw poll. And do you think we should address this? Yes or no? If it's yes, then there's a lot of debate about what that fix needs to be. And if there is that fix, then it goes to our policy and compliance department on staff, which is myself and our director of policy and compliance, Mike Sullivan. Then if we kind of give our check mark, then we write the proposed language, send it back to the committee. The committee says, yep, we love it. And then at that point, it goes out for public comment as an official change. The public comment process starts tomorrow. So we are changing things up a little bit this year. In the past, we've obviously just posted a link and said, here's the rule changes, let us know. That's not any different. What's different is that we've reached out to SmashBoxx and some other podcasts and other media opportunities to say, let us come on your show ahead of time. Let's talk about some of these changes ahead of time. Because I think we've all seen in the past, rule X comes up and then we have to come on a week later and say, listen, I know what everybody's saying. That is not what this is about, right? So, trying to use the media, trying to be a little more proactive is what we're doing tonight. And then after that public comment period ends, then we review all that commentary. There's also a staff review process that happens. Disc Golf Pro Tour reviews it, to use IT technology, IT terminology. By the time we get to the actual changes, we're on version like 15.5. Like there's a lot of iterations and changes.
So when it comes to, let's go even one step before that, which is, I know you mentioned Mike Krupicka, who happens to be in the Midwest. He's in Illinois, not to fully dox him, but he's in Illinois. So I'm familiar with him. He's very huge part of running the Ledgestone event or helping with the Ledgestone event and a ton of events in Illinois. And for the longest time was the Illinois coordinator, still is maybe. But everyone else, how do people get on the committee? Is it all volunteerism? Do you need a recommendation? Is there a limit to how many people are on the committee? Get even nuts and bolts with that. How do we arrive at that committee?
Yeah, great question. So they're all volunteers. Well, that's not quite true. It's a combination of volunteers and PDGA staff, right? So obviously I'm on staff and I'm a non-voting member of the committee because part of my staff duties is to manage and regulate the committee. But we have other staff members, Big Dog Andrew Sweeten, Todd Lyon. We have somebody from our operations and logistics team, Matt Lloyd. Our PDGA Europe tour leader, Matej, is on the committee. So every now and then it's not so much that we have a hard number, right? It's not like we have to have at least 6 or no more than 15, anything like that. But it's usually kind of an internal recruitment process, or it's a public call for, say, we would love to have some help on this. We'd love to have more input. And then we kind of internally know, just like when you're posted a job for any kind of job, you put out a general job description, but you kind of know the kind of candidate you're looking for. So, for example, if one of our members that doesn't run tournaments left, we would be looking for somebody that maybe plays a lot of tournaments, plays AM Worlds every year, Master Worlds every year, plays 30, 40 tournaments a year. But then if we lost one of our more experienced tournament directors, we're obviously going to be looking for something like that. So, it is a committee of volunteers. There's going to be fluidity. People coming in and out, and sometimes we say, we don't need to replace them, or sometimes we say we do. It's there's no manual, so to speak.
Yeah, and with that, when I'm talking about these individuals, are you, well, without, you certainly don't name names if that's not part of it, do we have a lot of high-profile players that are on the committee? And if not, because I don't think we do, is my guess, but if not, are you surprised by that, and would you like to see that?
Yeah, I mean, the committee list is public.
Okay.
PDGA.com/volunteers/committees. I just looked that up. I don't know that. I didn't know that. But our committee is John Berkram from New Jersey, Brian Cole from the Disc Golf Pro Tour, Patrick Caprio is from the Northeast as well. Scott Elam is the guy that I was saying that doesn't run tournaments. David Foss, former member of the board of directors. Brooke Johnson from West Virginia. It's great that we have a female perspective on that. Todd Lyon is staff. Matt Lloyd is staff. A. Ray brings a great perspective from somebody who plays a lot of tournaments and runs tournaments, and a lot of the somebody who's in their older stage of competition. And then Andrew Sweeten and Matej. So it's a pretty there's a lot of different perspectives and diversity on that for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because I know almost every single one of those people, and of course a great group, and I appreciate everything they do. It is also a little telling to me, and I know there's a DGPT, a couple different boards and committees that they have and player groups. It is kind of surprising that we don't have a highly interested and invested top level, household name pro anywhere within that list. That's surprising to me. That's telling me we don't have a single top level pro who is a rules, we'll say, stickler and or a rules aficionado that wants to be in the weeds with it and be on the committee. That's surprising to me. That's all.
Well, I know the players have a players group, and I wonder if some of the stuff with the DGPT. Yeah.
So Mike Sullivan attends the multiple times a year the Disc Golf Players Council, and they were heavily involved in our rule process, and we had even a smaller subset of group breakout with some changes with me and Mike and Phil Deloney, the competition director, and Jeff Spring, and then Ella Hansen, who's the chair of that committee. So we even had some smaller breakout conversations as well. And that's kind of why Brian Cole was there, right? Not that Brian Cole doesn't provide great insight, because he does, but Brian is there as the representative of the DGPT, as those players, as somebody who's in those player council meetings, right? And just like anything, like when we get into like 4.0, which is where, the rules for majors and elites, like we're going to absolutely run that by that committee. We pitch ideas to them all the time. So, are they directly involved with this? No. If one of them showed interest, would we be interested? Of course we'd be interested. But it's also, and I know you're not saying this, Terry, but it's inaccurate to say they're not involved. They're just not on the surface involved, right?
Okay. Yep. Well, let's start right there. Unintentionally a perfect segue. One of the pieces that's talked about that really just seems to apply to certain level of events is what you were just saying when we're talking about Elite Series and potentially majors, right? Would be that play could actually extend. And we could see some kind of either postponement or scenario where play could pick up or resume on a Monday. What's the current rule and what's being proposed exactly there? Because it gets mentioned all the time.
Yeah, so the current rule, this is one of our big changes that's going to be announced tomorrow. The full list of changes will be on PDGA.com tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern time if you want to see the full list. But we're obviously going to get into some of those here. So the current rule is basically competition cannot extend past the final original scheduled date. right? So for extreme, when we're talking about the tour, right, we're talking about events on Sunday, right, and you're just going to play Sunday until you can finish. And let's say that the lead card only plays 13 holes and it's time to stop. Then every single player's scores on 14 through 18 do not count, and you have a 13-hole final round. So there is a mid-event cancellation policy that the PDGA has for events, and that is currently the rule. And assuming this goes through the proposal, which I can't imagine it doesn't, we're going to allow our tour events and the MPO and FPO majors to extend into the next day, which we can call it a Monday finish. We don't want to use the word Monday because of whatever, right? And I've pointed out, like, the reason why we've never had this rule is we're just now in the last 3 or 4 years starting to see that shift from the weekend warrior to the true professional athlete, right? And the example I always point out is the Jeremy Colling USCDC year. They wanted to extend play into Sunday. And I say into Sunday because that USCDC used to be Wednesday to Saturday. Why? Because people had to fly home Sunday and return to their normal jobs on Monday. And everyone said, no, we can't do that. Well, a lot of that was because, like I just said, they got to go to work Monday. That's not really necessarily the case with our current professional disc golfer and our climate of where we are. So we just felt it was time to go ahead and make this shift to where our true professional events, right? We're not going to be doing this at the Junior Worlds. We're not going to be doing this at US AMs, right? Where people are likely returning to jobs or school or normal life, right? But we're going to allow extensions of MPO and FPO divisions at majors and Pro Tour events for 24 hours. And then the World Championships, there is no deadline. Like if we have terrible weather again on Monday, I've said this many times, like I pick on Waco because I love Ryan Draper and he's a great guy. I don't know if I care if there's 2 Waco champions. We cannot have 2 world champions, right? And so you'll see a lot of this tomorrow when it comes out. I'll be glad to get into it. It's very flowcharty, very logistics, but essentially we've developed a procedure to where we allow play to finish on Monday. That basically ensures that it's no more than 9 holes because there's so many logistics. Like it's hard enough for us to find volunteers for some events. Now we got to find it on days we weren't scheduled to. You may have another tour event the next week. You've got media. There's so many logistics involved. But the ultimate goal of this is that the champion of the event should play the originally scheduled number of holes or as close to as possible. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And I think it's a great shift it's just time. We're ready for it. And in 2026, it's happening.
So is that going to be the default for MPO, FPO at the Pro Tour? Or, as you said, there's some sort of flow chart to figure this out. So if play is called at 2 o'clock on Sunday, they've played, 12 holes, not quite the 13. Is that just the given now? Like, oh, we're playing Monday. Or will there be is there some sort of, like, no, in this instance, we're going to cancel it. Who makes that call? Is it the TD? Is it the PDGA? Because I can foresee an instance where fans, if it's called one time and it's not called another for whatever your flow chart is, well, it's clearly rigged for Terry to win. That's why it was called now, because Terry was almost in the lead. So is there, I guess just maybe go on a little bit about the procedure. You don't have to go too far if we're going to get a flow chart tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it does say that, reading the rule, and I'm looking over to the side of my other monitor here, it says, first of all, this section is only applicable where the following are true. Number 1, play has been severely disrupted by weather or other uncontrollable events, right? Most of the time it's weather, but who knows, right? Number 2, extending play is the only way to complete the event's originally scheduled rounds. And then here's kind of your question here. Number 3, the tournament director approves and at majors, PDGA director of competition, Elite Series, the tour director, right? Like, so it's got to make sense on PDGA side for majors. It's got to make sense on DGPT side for tour events, but it's also got to make sense for the host, right? If the host just comes in and is like, look, I mean, they're tearing this course down. You know, I've used this reference jokingly, like, look, the circus is the state fair is on this property next week. The Ferris wheel's coming tomorrow. You know, like, you know, so we've got to get that input, and we really debated a lot of this of where that line in the sand is, of how much you extend, who extends, and we thought about it. Does it need to be anybody within X number of shots to the lead? Does it need to be a certain number of players? And we essentially, the easiest way to explain it is that we arrived on when 16 players or fewer have not finished. So you're talking 1, 2, 3, or 4 cards. You just stop play, you return play the next day, right? So if 4 groups haven't finished, the lead card's on what, 10, 11, probably, something like that. You just finish it up, have a good day. But if we have just a massive fiasco and we've got more than 16, or we've got maybe 40 or 50 players, what we're going to do in that situation is we're going to end the round with that mid-event suspension policy, where we're going to say the most common number of holes played is X. That policy says it's got to be 9 holes or the round doesn't count. We're overriding that. If the round is 3 holes, it's 3 holes. If the round is 12 holes, it's 12 holes. We don't care, right? Then at that point, we're going to take up to 12 players. If there's, like I said, this is if more than 16 have not finished. We're going to take up to 12 players. And so if there's a 3-way tie for 11th, those guys don't move on, right? You would only take 10 players in that scenario. And if whatever those number of holes that the lead group has finished, right? So let's say it's 12 holes, right? Then those sets of X number of players will just play the last 6 holes. So then what's our goal? For our champion to play the originally scheduled number of holes, right? Mm-hmm. But let's just say it's 15 holes, right? There's so many logistics. We can't find 15 holes of spotters on a Monday, right? So the maximum number of holes in that scenario would be 9. So we would essentially be returning to the old school final 9 concept with those 11 players. And then we do have just the big caveat of basically, look, at the end of the day, the tournament director and Jeff Spring or Phil Deloney, whichever applies, they kind of have that freedom to do what's necessary. So it's important at the end of the day that we internally, the PDGA, understand. The Disc Golf Pro Tour understands it. We all like it. We all think it's a good idea. We also need to have these published sets of procedures so our players can see it. Because to your point, not that we're concerned about the appearance of collusion, but our players do need to see, you know, okay, I'm going to expect to play holes X, Y, and Z.
So many questions. I guess the first one will be this. Does this really only change Sunday? So let's say around Friday on a 4-day event is canceled. MPO's washed out. Are we still going to see everyone's showing up Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and we're going to try to get through MPO and then we're going to try to get through everyone? Or is it along the lines of, okay, no, we're just canceling that day and we're pushing into Sunday. We're going to push into Monday, no matter what, because, you know, everybody didn't get a chance playing. It would be very difficult to get everybody through 2 rounds because then you're probably pushing. Like, that's the type of scenario I'm curious about. And I think I already know what the public answer to this is going to be. Maybe the private one is different. Did this have anything to do with the DGPT and the new gambling rules? Anything that they're dealing with the gambling procedures, and that there's a whole different procedure now for what happens when a player withdraws early. Who needs to be notified, what the lines are. Can you speak to that at all? I don't know.
So to your first question, well, you know, to go back to the policy, the play is basically like extending play is the only way to complete the original scheduled rounds, right? So like TDs are going to be basically said like, look, you need to follow our mid-event suspension policy, right? So that might mean players got to play 36 holes on Saturday to catch up in your example, right? So we're not overriding that. We're basically saying when we hit that point on Sunday where it's just not going to happen, right? And you know, and I kind of also, when I was thinking about this, I kind of also said, this also solves some maybe scenarios that we haven't seen. Let's go back, 20 years to the marathon playoff of Kenny and Barry at USDGC, right? What was the big concern when they're having their 10-hole playoff? Man, we might. I think if you see on the DVD, you can hear him saying, like, man, we might run out of light tonight. Like it solves the marathon playoff scenario as well, right? Like just keep playing the next day. As far as gambling, I truly had not considered that. That is something that is not something I have been asked, something we did not think about in this policy. This truly was a move towards, and I'm not dodging that at all, but this truly was a move toward competition, right? We want to make sure that whenever possible that we have one champion and we have those champions play as much as the originally scheduled as possible, right? Go back a couple years ago to the Ledgestone situation where Cal Klein was leading on the holes ahead. You backdate holes, you have Ricky and Calvin tie. By the letter of the rule, that is the correct outcome. And we're just trying to say that, not that that wasn't the correct outcome, but here's an alternative solution when we have those situations.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, and even that one in particular is so tough because, as you just said, Sunday night at Lake Eureka, they're breaking that down. That is completely a temporary course out there. They've got hundreds of volunteers that come out, including the local high school football team and all these other people.
Course rental.
And they're breaking that course down Sunday as play is wrapping up, so to speak, and then to go back out on Monday. There's just a million, logistics to get figured out. And of course, like you mentioned, that's a media, that's a player concern, sponsor concern, everybody. And I think it's still, I love that we're coming up with the possibility that it could actually happen. And at the same time, I worry it's going to always still just be a screaming match of personal preference in the moment. But at least it's another option. Because like Johnny said, oh, well, of course the TD doesn't want us to come back out on Monday. There's a Discraft player that's leading, and they are in bed with Discraft or whomever. Insert any name brand there. So of course they want to just end it here on Sunday night. We could come back out tomorrow, and so on and so forth. We're not going to get away from any of that.
No, there's going to be stupidity everywhere. We know that.
Anyway, it's okay. We've seen a number of these scenarios, whether it's darkness, whether it's weather, so to speak, whether that day or whether that pushed things back from a day or two earlier. We had the hurricane at the USDGC. All of these things have come up in some capacity. So I guess now that we have a policy to lean into, it will be another resource, another option.
Well, if we're going to talk about extensions of play, let's roll that right into extensions of time.
Man, what a segue!
Boom!
That was Weird Al White and nerdy level of segue.
Yeah, that's why he's gets paid the big bucks here.
Do I need to pay you at some point?
Yeah, no.
Okay, good.
I don't deserve it. I do not deserve
answer.
any. I am just here as a supporting cast.
So the new rule is players will receive 2 time extensions in FPO and MPO only. And this is just for tour events. This isn't your local B tier or C tier. So let's get that out of the way. Whoever your local slow player is, they don't get it. They don't get this extension, no matter what they try to convince you. This sounds like, and from my understanding, from what I've heard, it's going to depend on your lie, so to speak. Whether you're on the tee versus in the fairway versus on the green. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you're kind of combining a couple of things, and I'm recognizing that I'm a pretty long-winded person, but this is a I can see you guys sign. This is the extension. You have to understand the baseline before you even get to the extensions, right?
Yep.
So first and foremost, there is a major change to every single disc golf event. And that is basically how the time rule works. Mm-hmm. So obviously everyone knows you get 30 seconds, right? Everybody knows that rule. It's been hammered into you. Well, we're making a shift next year that you're going to get 45 seconds in certain situations. And essentially, the way it is being written is when you're on the tee, when you're at a drop zone, or you're within 20 meters of the target, which some people call circle 2, you're going to get 30 seconds. Everywhere else, you're going to get 45 seconds. So the first thing is, well, why? So there's many, many reasons why. First and foremost, if you think about it, a tee shot, a drop zone shot, and a throw within 20 meters are pretty much not only predictable, but you can rehearse them, right? You should be able to know when you step up to a tee, I've practiced this shot, right? You should know drop zones. I've practiced this shot. You should know when you're 28 feet what you're going to do, right? Of course, there's different variables, wind or trees or whatever. Everywhere else in between is kind of the wild, wild west, right? You know, even if you're the best player on earth and can land it in the exact single spot every single time on a par 4, it's just that second shot. You just need more time, right? Just think about, let's just compare a fairway throw and a tee shot, right? Just by the letter of the rule and by practices. Tee throws, you're given the distance. You're not given the distance in the fairway. Tee throws, you're not required to hit a lie in your run-up, right? Just as long as you got supporting points anywhere in this big piece of concrete or carpet or whatever, you're good. You almost never have casual obstacles on the tee. You might have to clear sticks or cones or whatever, right? You're throwing an unrehearsed shot versus a rehearsed shot. You don't really have to worry about bad footing in the fairway. You know, it's like you do on the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then if you're third or fourth on the tee, you just watched a couple people throw that exact same shot, right? So we really started thinking about it, and we really just kind of came to the conclusion that it's really not good to compare from the aspect of time rehearsed shots and unrehearsed and unpredictable shots. So we are given that extra 45 seconds, that extra 15 seconds. And the immediate response that we've gotten to about this has been, isn't this going to slow play down? And we really started thinking about it, and I actually believe it's going to speed play up, believe it or not. And the reason why I say that is because the first element is that we're changing a little bit of the rule about determining the lie. No one has understood, or I shouldn't say no one, a majority of people have not understood what determine the lie means, because the rule currently says once you determine your lie, the clock starts, right? And by the letter of the rule, so once you have located your disc, once you've located the basket, there's the clock starting. So as soon as somebody gets to their lie, so think about, let's say you throw a perfect shot on a par 4. You don't got a weird lie, you don't got a weird off the fairway lie, whatever. You walk up to your tee, you walk up to your disc, there's the disc, there's the basket, clock starts.
That's before you put your bag down. That's before you...
Yeah, you determine the lie.
Yeah.
Right? So let's think about all the things you're going to do when you get to that shot. You're going to walk up. You're going to range find it. You're maybe going to range find a couple of trees. You're going to check the wind. Then you're going to think about it. And then you're going to maybe get your 2 discs out. And do I want to go left of that tree? Do I want to go right of that tree? And then you mentally come up with your shot. And then you start your pre-shot routine. We basically found that a majority of people were breaking the 30-second rule in the fairway because all of those actions were occurring and people didn't realize the clock was starting. So we've kind of added this concept of addressing your lie, and we're being very clear that says, like, hey, if you mark your lie, if you place a supporting point in your lie, if you're doing a pre-shot routine, if you're using a rangefinder, checking the wind, clearing casual obstacles, all those things are, once you've started doing any of those, you have addressed your lie. So by saying all that, we're now saying, okay, it's logical that that's going to take 15 or 20 seconds to do these things, and then you're still granted your 20 or 30 seconds. We also strongly believe that players are going to be more apt to call time violations at every level on the putting green or on the tee, because now they know that they've got a little more extra time on the fairway. So, and we're also clarifying that if something enters the playing area, the disc golf gods had the deer come on to Gannonburg's putt, right as we were releasing this rule change. We actually have something that says if an animal stops play, time stops, time completely resets. So all of that is a big change. We're calling it 30, 45, 30. If you think about it, 30 at the beginning, 30 at the end, kind of 45 in between.
Those are Terry's measurements too.
Oh yeah.
Only if she's
high 3.
Oh, well done. So that's for every single PDGA event. 30, 45, 30. Now let's kind of get into time extensions and what is different about those to get to your original question here. So on tour, this is only going to be for tour events and MPO, FPO majors. Players are going to receive up to 2 time extensions a round of 30 seconds. And the reason why I just went through that entire exercise was not only because it's applicable to every event, but then that 30-second extension is on top of that same calculus of 30, 45, 30 and where you are, right? So it might be a minute 15. If it's a fairway throw, it'll be a minute on a putt. And there's all kind of details and interesting things about if this happens or that happens. But the big things to take note of here are, first and foremost, your card mates are obligated to call that on you. So instead of going time warning, they immediately, if you exceed your allotted 30, 45 or 30, 45, 30, your card mates are obligated to say extension. You get 2 extensions per round. And once you've exhausted your 2 extensions, there's no warning. It's automatically a penalty for that third excessive time. You can call it on yourself. Let's say you got a putt to win the tournament and you haven't had that. You can immediately say extension, and now you have 60 seconds to execute that putt. And the last thing I'll say about this before we kind of get a little deeper into it is this was championed by the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the Disc Golf Pro Tour Players Council. We know last year this was proposed. It was widely voted down or disliked for a majority of PDGA events. We started thinking about it and was like, yeah, this doesn't make sense for C tiers, but I can understand this on tour. I'll never have a putt to win a world championship. I can't imagine what that feels like, the heart rate, just all of these elements. And they really push for this. And so much more importantly is and I'm calling our players out a little bit right here intentionally, is they have stated that they will be much more comfortable calling time violations on their card mates with this extension process. So they have said, not only do we support this, this is how we're comfortable making these calls.
So I just want a quick clarification that I am standing at 29 feet or 39. I guess it doesn't matter, but I'm standing at 29 or 39 feet. I have addressed my lie. I am just sitting there. I am pumping and checking the wind. I'm doing everything. 30 seconds has clearly elapsed since the beginning of it. Who and when is blurting out the word extension, and at what point or not? Like what's being said or done? Like, give me that exact scenario. You're at 33 seconds. I'm still fist pumping at 33 seconds. Does somebody else blurt something out, or does it get said after the fact? What happens?
So the player in the moment can then say extension.
Or a player, a competitor.
Yes, like the player putting. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And say extension. Or very similar to how the time warning works now. It's retroactive, right? It's hey, you just went over. That's your extension.
Okay. Okay.
And in the off chance that a player, we'll say, is in the fairway, they're in the brush, they go up. They know I'm going to take an extension here, guys. I know this is going to take me a little bit. they go over their extension.
Yeah, they go to a minute 30 because they have 45 plus 30.
Yep.
So, but they clearly took a minute and 30 or 2 minutes because they were just buried in this crap, and or they just went back to their bag 6 times because they didn't bring their bag closer to them, which drives me crazy. But anyway, they go back to their bag 6 different times. They get 2 discs. No, and then they go get 2 more, and then they go, and they take a full 2 minutes, a clear full 2 minutes after they've called. Let's just say they've already used one other extension earlier in the round. So they're down to their last extension. They've used it. It's 2 minutes, and then is it after they've thrown, a card mate can say, "Hey man, you went a full 2 minutes. Now you have a penalty."
Yeah, it wouldn't be a penalty. So 4.09b will say if a player exceeds the additional time allotted by a time extension, right, which is what this is, they receive warnings and penalties as specified in 802.03g, which is the time, right?
Okay.
So it goes like normal disc golf tournaments, and right now it goes warning, stroke, right?
Yep.
What this is going to be is it's a little segmented. It's going to be extension, stroke, right?
Okay.
But when you exceed, then when you have called an extension and you exceed, then you are eligible to receive a warning. And the difference between that is because there has been some recognition that this shot is going to take extra time. So if you do exceed, then you are going to get that warning. But then if you exceed again, now it is penalties.
Okay. I can see that. Honestly, it feels a little toothless, that first one. Like that first time with an extension, you could take a full 4 minutes. Like, and knowing full well you're just going to get a warning. Like, all right, I know this is a really rough position. No one should ever take 4 minutes, let's be honest. But that first one, you're going to get the warning even after the time extension. But I mean, again, this is Pro Tour. I don't foresee people taking that type of time. But
yeah, I mean, but in the egregious scenarios, I mean, what's the definition of cheating? Right? It's intentionally breaking a rule to get an advantage.
Yeah,
that would be a disqualification.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I don't mind it. I think overall, I think it's a good compromise to what we've been seeing. I think that there's only a few players I even imagine you probably using them any given weekend. And as we see right now, players are reluctant to call other players as it is. So I don't see there being... Yeah.
I think, last year this concept was brought forward to public comment for all events, and it was shot down. It obviously didn't make the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of internally, I mean like amongst staff.
Sure.
In conversation of like, well, because the 30-second rule, so the original rules chair, this guy named Carlton Howard, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's from my hometown. I've known him my entire disc golf life. And I remember I called him when we were thinking about this probably 8, 9, 10 months ago. And I said, Carlton, just, tell me about this 30-second rule. I knocked my headphones out. Sorry about that. Tell me about this 30-second rule. And he basically said that their intention at the time was keep up with the group in front of you. And he said, I don't know if that's possible to legislate now, even with digital scoring and the TD tracking. If it's not possible now, it was absolutely impossible before. Like, how is a TD supposed to monitor 17 or 18 groups of pace of play without technology? It's just impossible. So they said they just kind of arbitrarily picked a number. And the one thing is that, this rule was written in a par 3 era of disc golf, right? Good shots were tap-ins, decent shots were still putts, bad shots were approaches. There was never a scenario where you had a great shot and you still had to execute an incredibly difficult second shot like we do now. So I think this 30, 45, 30 concept is very much a modernization of of disc golf, and recognizing that we have shifted from a game of all par threes to more of a game of par threes, fours, and fives. And one thing that I do in this role is I read a lot of USGA rules, which is obviously what governs golf, and they get extra time on par fours and par fives for that from the fair. They actually say, like, if you're the first person to hit on a par four from the fairway, you get 10 extra seconds, right? And it's interesting, because we have this ingrained that their rules are all about keep up with the group in front of you, keep up with the group, keep pace, keep pace, keep pace. But they actually have rules that dictate, par fours and par fives have different time rules. And that's really what kind of triggered me to say, man, we got to figure something out. And, version 15.5 of all these changes, and this is where we landed.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, as we'll say about all of these rules, the one thing that I love is if it's wrong, we'll change it. We're not locked into things. We're a volunteer-led organization for the most part, and we have a active body that listens to most of what we say. I think I will confidently say that. And if we make a mistake, we'll change it. I mean, we've seen that with different rules. There's rules that we've had for years that are changed, and this is one of them. And so we'll go back. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen in this particular instance. I think it's a fine rule, and I don't think it's going to change pace of play much, to be honest.
I don't know if it'll change pace of play. I'm kind of up in the air on that. What I'm really interested to see is if there's any truth to the players being more comfortable calling other players when they are now exceeding their extensions and so forth. That to me, the proof will have to be in the pudding. There is, I think players will they be like, hey man, woman, whatever, you've gotten 2 extensions. We've all recognized that. Here it is finally now on our 3rd situation, which is technically their first offense. Then, no one should hold the 2 extensions against them. I hope no one will. That's not the problem. It's when we get to then that first true violation, will they really be more comfortable to call it? That's what I'm waiting to see. I hope they are. Yeah. But that's what I'm waiting to see. I have no idea.
I'm just taking their word for it, right?
Yeah,
I've never been in that position, right? So
yeah,
I think players will be much more forward in calling extensions because it doesn't lead to a penalty. There's very little to no bad blood in that, and then that's kind of like giving someone a warning.
It very much is.
It's like the first of 3 warnings. You're like, hey, buddy, unless the person calls it themselves. So
can you stack extensions? That's my final question. Could you?
No.
So you're on hole 17. You haven't used any extensions. You already know hole 18 is this
easy par 3. Can you sell extensions? Can I buy yours?
can we bet on them on Underdog? That's the question. The over/under on extensions used. But you're on 17. You call for extension, and can you call for it again? Because you haven't used yours. Could you call double extensions?
No, the rule does say that you're not allowed to use multiple extensions on a single throw.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, again, all we can do is wait and see if that if those things come. Let's go. I'm going to go on to another one that I have in front of me.
Yeah, it's a weak segue.
Oh yeah, I did. I was not trying to tie anything together.
God, you're weak.
What I want to do is talk about something we had a healthy discussion about a couple of weeks ago on this very show.
So we're extending the discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
Boom, 2 for 2.
Oh gosh, yes. Anyway, we had a healthy discussion about cut lines and the U.S. Masters in particular, and I even fully admitted I had one perspective, maybe and or bias to it. Johnny doesn't worry about cash lines, so he wasn't concerned.
No,
but
hey, I used to worry about that.
A couple of weeks ago, there were 12 FP40s in the division, and by day 2 or 3, it was realized out of a 4-round event that the cut/cash line was going to be to 5 out of 12, hence 40%. of the division or whatever it was, to follow in line with policies and procedures. We then had a discussion about should it be a threesome and a twosome, a foursome and a onesome. We had those discussions. But even among the women that particular weekend, they were discussing, well, maybe more of us should have been cut, or maybe less of us should be cut. But the rule for the PDGA is you cut to the cash line where there's cuts applicable. So it looks like you guys are entertaining some other ideas. Tell us what that means about cash lines, cut lines, positions. What does this mean?
Yeah, you're correct. Currently, the rule says if you choose to implement a cut, which is technically allowed at any single PDGA event, that's more than one round. Obviously, you wouldn't have a cut in one round.
Cut after 6 holes.
Hey, I know you just missed that putt, pal. You're out of here.
Yeah.
Right?
You screwed up the star frame. You're out.
Yeah. I would have been cut at my CT where I played on Memorial Day yesterday for sure. But no, you can implement a cut, but it has to be to the cash line. And next year, we're basically changing that to where it says, you can making the cut line at the cash line is highly recommended. Okay. It's changing from required. And it's going to say events choosing to have a cut line must publish their cut line as a percentage or a specified number at the places at the time of registration. So the big two changes here are because we're changing it from required to highly recommended. If I want to say I'm paying 40% of the field, but I'm going to allow 75% of the field to make the cut, not only can I do that, but I have to announce it at the time of registration. So it just it gives TDs a little more flexibility. It potentially solves the issue that you're referring to, which is only unique at majors with smaller divisions. It's just it's a wrinkle of TD freedom, basically. This actually used to be the rule, and we're going back to that rule. To that, and I think it's hey, to your point, JVD, about earlier, hey, we can change it back. We changed it to this, and after 5-6 years, we kind of said, no, we probably like it the other way better, and so we're going back to the old. Yeah,
first of all, I'm good with the change. I'm good with changing it to that. I have no problem with it. I know that's what it used to be. As a guy who has at 2 different world championships been paid but didn't play on the semifinals on Saturday, and I was good with it because even if I went out and played the best round of my life, I was going to make an extra $10. So I was much more likely to go out on that Friday night, and I already had money in my $10 and had money in my pocket. My only because I know how the internet works and I know how disc golfers work. The very first time we get to an event, there's going to be a cut. Somebody's not going to get paid, and they're going to say, "What the F? I made the cut and I'm not getting paid." That is going to
ignorance of the rule,
going to be so loudly screamed at, and then they're going to say it's so stupid. Why is that even possible? So they're going to completely contradict the rule that we're going to revert back to. Again, I'm fine with it, but that's what's going to happen. Mark my words, you're going to see internet pissing and moaning,
but that's
left
people that
and
don't
right
listen
over
to
this.
the rule. That's people that don't reread the rules. At least, again, I love what Robert's saying. It has to be told ahead of time by registration. At that point, there should, and I'm going to put that in big fat bold, be no complaints. Everybody knew going into it. I don't care what the internet says on something like that. I'm more, again, my big bugaboo about cuts is the guy who the cut is at 50 and he's 51 because of a tie, and then he doesn't get paid. He's got to play and he doesn't get paid. I hate that. I'd rather, can the cut line be less than the cash line or only beyond it?
Currently, it would be at the cash line, but with this change, you could do it below because it says that making the cut line at above the payout line is highly recommended, right? So no longer required. And I think there are so many situations with rules where no matter what you say X, 50% are going to say you're a genius, 50% are say you're an idiot. You switch it, and then those 50% change, right? At the end of the day, situations like this, there's not a right answer. There just has to be an answer, and it has to be consistently applied.
I would want, again, personally, if I were running one of these events and now I have this option, I would say ahead of time, we're cutting to the cash line minus ties. If there's a tie, you don't make the cash. Similar to your situation, where like at Worlds, where guess what? There was a 3-way tie for last place. None of you 3 make the cash, or none of make the cut. Too bad, so sad. You're all going to tie for whatever position you got, and then someone's not going to get not paid. You'll just pay out all 3 as a tie, wash my hands of it, and be done. Like that, I so love that idea. And maybe I'm in the minority when it comes to saying, like, again, just a couple weeks ago when James, I want to say Conrad, but it's not Conrad. Proctor, thank you. When Proctor shot a horrible final round and he missed cash but made the cut, I would so rather cut less than that and just say, guess what? Everyone's going to make it. Because you can't go wrong there. Because if there's no ties, then everyone gets paid. And if there's not,
yeah, but if there's a 9-way tie for the last cash spot,
then there's less people. Then there's less people on the course. It'll go faster. Don't you pay out 9 people? Screw them. That's my philosophy.
Robert the player and Robert the guy who runs 2 C tiers a year.
The 2 Roberts on your shoulder.
Yes. They're both devils, by the way.
Okay.
I don't like this. I think I will never support this, but I don't have a problem with an event having flexibility and choice. And at that point, as a player, it's kind of caveat emptor. If you sign up, like if I sign up for an event at a course I don't like, I'm not going to go and complain about the course. Like I know I don't like this course, right? You know, it's very similar. You know, if I don't know if I would want to play around where there's a cut and I'm not going to get paid guaranteed or likely, but then it's my fault for signing for that event. So I like that the TDs have the flexibility, and I like that that RRAC thought of like, hey, like if we make this change, we got to make sure this is published in advance, because when this was proposed to us, it was just like, we should go back and credit to RRAC for really saying like, well, the old rule didn't have this pre-announcement requirement. That's the change from the previous rule, which is again, credit to that committee. That's truly not something I thought of. That was all them.
I love giving the TD the freedom personally. I think it's great. And again, as long as everybody knows ahead of time, there shouldn't, in giant bold letters, be a problem.
Speaking of
when
problems,
it is.
Yeah. One of the things that came up in the last few years, well, now a few is not even the right term because we're getting so old, more than a decade ago, was
you can complain about the 2-meter rule,
sanctioned
no.
league play, and what that means for the PDGA, what that means for the people running it, the competitors, your ratings, everything else, and finding some distinctions between sanctioned league play and then some of our other, we'll say, entry-ish level events, such as C tiers. At one point, we had D tiers, so on and so forth. There's a new rule proposed, or a new rule that's out there, that is, again, providing a little more flexibility in terms of beverages, adult beverage consumption. Where are we at on this?
Flexibility.
Can we party?
Like that.
Can we party? Yeah. What's going on?
Yes. So we are making some pretty big changes, or proposing some pretty big changes for flex starts. So it's really important to understand that flex start play is only allowed at leagues and C tiers, right? So this is never going to happen at a B tier, right? But flex starts, you know, I love flex starts. I play flex starts all the time. I think it's amazing that I can pick my tee time. You know, I got a buddy of mine that doesn't like to compete that much, but it's so much easier to say like, hey, you're going to play with me. You're going to have fun. You know,
He's like, yeah, I'll be at another flex start somewhere else.
Right, yeah.
He's like, which one are you playing in? Yeah, I'm at a different one.
I got a player in my area that we had signed up on the same card, and then he didn't show up. And somebody said, like, oh, I'm so excited to play with Adam. And I'm like, the guaranteed way to never play with Adam is sign up with him. That guy is never on time. Anyway.
Anyway, go on. I'm sorry. So yes.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. No, but flex starts. If you really think about it, they're great. I mean, I can't speak enough about them. I love them. Like, look at my player profile. I play them all the time. But competitively, they're just not the same as even a basic C tier, right? Where you're choosing your groups, you're choosing your tee time. I mean, if it's raining until noon, I guarantee you I'm teeing off at 2, right? There's just all these different factors. So we started thinking, like, man, we really need to differentiate flex starts. We really need to. It's got to be more than just, oh, well, you can pick your group. So we started thinking, like, well, what are some rules that we can relax? And we started thinking, we're going to allow someone under the age of 13 to accompany a group, right? So, like, if a dad wants to bring their kid out, like, that's what we should be encouraging. We should be encouraging more people to play. And just like in a league, if you're in, I'm going to be very specific when I say this, if you are of legal age, wherever the venue is, and if the venue currently allows it. Like, I'm a North Carolinian, I'm in the Bible Belt. There is no public park in North Carolina that allows alcohol.
We're in Wisconsin, and actually every river has alcohol in it, and you can bring your 12-year-olds to drink. So it's great. We're set.
You're not allowed in a park unless you have a 6-pack here.
Yeah.
A quick side note. When I came and played the 2007 Worlds in Wisconsin, I had heard a joke that Wisconsin was nothing but cheese, bars, and churches. And that was pretty accurate. I could not believe. That's all I saw. But anyway.
And sometimes you do all 3 of those in the same morning. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yes.
No, hold on, real quick. I'm not kidding. I was driving back from Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is straight west of here, about 2 hours, and we drove past a bar church. It was a church in the morning, and then in the afternoon, it turned into a bar. Yeah. And I was thinking, this is perfect, brilliant. Like, this is just that's what you do. You get the overnighters to start drinking, and then you bring them right into church.
Yeah, ready to
I
go.
have a flash memory of watching Terry play hole 1 at the gold course of that Worlds. But anyway, anyway, so. So if you're at a place where it's legal, right? Whether it be the public park allows it, or you're at a private venue or whatever, we're going to allow you to drink, right? Just like a league. Now you're still responsible for your behavior, right? You can't, if you get so drunk and then you do something that's against the rules, you're still responsible, right? But it's just like it's kind of like one of those why not situations. Why would we restrict this? And we're already saying that this is not, like, it's okay to say this is serious. It's okay to say this is still a PDGA sanctioned event, but it's also okay to say this isn't as serious as a C tier. This isn't as serious as a B tier. We're also going to allow, for more on the rules side of things, at flex starts, we're going to allow groups to play through groups. That's a big change. Right, and where that actually came from was I have so this was and this is not me trying to take credit. This was my idea, and the rationale behind it was that at those flex starts that I play here locally, we have a group of 3 FA 60 women and an FA 4 level player, and those 4 women play together all the time, and it's I love it. It is so awesome. That is a great example of flex starts working, that these, very marginalized divisions are comfortable playing, absolutely love it. But nobody signs up within an hour of them, right? Like, and if you think about it, your local C tier, like, as somebody who plays MPO and MP40, I'm never going to be behind a group of MA4 players. I'm never going to be behind a group of FA60 players, because you as the TD are going to control that with the tee times or the shotgun starts. You lose that control as a TD, and then you have these situations where, we got an hour of gaps, right? Why would we not allow, as long as the group ahead, as long as I say, hey, are we cool playing through? And as long as that group agrees to it, what's the harm? And the big thing, the biggest change is we're going to allow people to play multiple times in the same event as long as they're playing different divisions. So if you are, if you are the only person that could not do this is a professional male under the age of 40, rated 970 or above, because they're only eligible for MPO. Every single person on the planet is eligible for multiple divisions and can play multiple times now, starting next year.
You used to be able to do that. Because I've done it.
Yeah, way back when, but then it was a little bit more of a database logistical challenge of, when we would have flights, for instance, you could play in the A flight that might play Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon, and then in a different division you qualify in the B flight Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning. But I was always told there was a little bit of a logistical / database challenge that also factored in with having essentially your name in the database, which is your unique identifier, not your name, your PDGA number, but then it kind of jacking things up if the events weren't separated with different event IDs. Did I get that right? Something along
those lines? Yeah. The thing about it is that that was a perfect example of all of a sudden something starts happening, and we as the PDGA have to step in and say, why is this okay? Here's why. Or why is this not okay? Here's why it's not. And at the time we had to say, wait a minute. Each individual calendar entry you can only play once. We had to kind of control that. And now that we've got some more tech people and we really started thinking about it, why would we not want to increase player participation? It makes so much sense. And now there's a couple of caveats, right? You got to pay your entry fee each time.
Of course.
And and you got to declare which division you're playing at the start of the round.
Yep.
You can't just walk up and be like, "Man, I just shredded it. There's my MPO round." No, you can't do that, right? But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's gonna increase competition. Tournament directors are going to get more revenue. There's obviously an element of revenue for the PDGA. It's a win-win-win for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I think even though it's had its challenges, as I just described, some of them may be a little technical at one point, I think it's absolutely perfect because you could literally have a 15-year-old junior or a 17-year-old junior player, for instance, want to play junior, then come back later in the afternoon because they say, hey, I'm ready to play my MA2 or MA1 round, and by the way, I'm going to sign up again. I'm going to play now my MPO designated round. I see no downside to that at all. Like you said, as long as you're declaring, which you have to do when you sign up, declaring which division you're about to play in, and you're continuing to pay the entry fee, I see no downside to that whatsoever. And even in a place like, I'll say, Samui, of course, I'm partial to our event in Thailand. We have those flights. We have morning flights for 3 straight days, and then we have afternoon flights for 3 straight days. If I really wanted to, I could play MP40 every morning and then play MPO every afternoon. And right now, that is not is it basically been not allowed or not, or does it jack the system? What happens if somebody tries that?
Yeah, so currently, the rules say you can't do it, right? There's a rule about that an event has to have unique calendar entries.
Okay.
And it's, and if next time you run an event, put in the same player twice, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And tournament manager will send you a warning. Tournament manager sends you a warning. But yeah, big changes, like you said, drinking where it's when and where it's legal, playing through, playing twice. And this is applied to any flex start, right? So it could be a flex start league or it could be a flex start C tier.
But this is not applied to a B tier. Because I'm thinking of something like
flex starts are not allowed in B tiers.
No, I'm saying it's a B tier in general, playing two different divisions. Because I'm thinking of something
no.
like Northwoods, where now they do have flights where in the morning they send out MP40 and all the age protected divisions in the morning. The afternoon, then it's MPO, FPO, and then in the next day it's usually flip flopped. Where it used to be that way. Now I think they're actually doing tea times, but that's a B tier usually. So in theory, back in the day, I could have played 2 divisions.
Yeah. Sure. So let's allow that. Why not?
Yeah. What's the problem with B?
So
something like that.
This provision currently only applies to flex starts, and I think it's one of those things where will we allow it in future events? Maybe, but I think we need to we as the PDGA are trying to do a better job at testing things like this at lower risk type events, right? And I'd rather be wrong at a flex C tier than a B tier. Right?
I guess I just wonder, this might be all part of the public comment and whatever. You're going to get a massive dissertation from me all written up. You won't, but I wonder
Terry doesn't know what dissertation means.
What would the downside be? What is the current downside to playing in, we'll say, morning flights and then an afternoon flight? I don't know where the downside even is.
I'm personally not against it. I'm a huge fan of it. But there's a little bit of an equity conversation, right? Is it fair that somebody can afford to play it twice and other people can't? Is it fair that the person maybe gets a morning practice round versus the person who can't play in the morning? I mean, these are not great arguments, but I mean, those are the things that we kind of think about. And like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I think, it's sports. Sports aren't fair at the end of the day. And, it's not fair that LeBron is 6'9" and is as good as he is. It's sports, right? But like I said, will we ever allow that in the future? Who knows?
Yeah.
But we're kind of starting that process with league and flex starts, which is where things like this should be tested and tried.
Here's what I'll go on a not very far limb and say I bet you it's allowed in the future. Again, it's something you did.
It used to be, yeah. Way back in the day.
You did years ago, because as I always joke about, I played at the Pierce Park at the Open, and I played in Advanced and Open, and I cashed in Open, and I
technically not allowed.
Well, yeah, that was 13 years ago. That was 15 years ago.
15 years ago, yeah,
at least.
And I played in Advanced, and I didn't cash, and I played in Open, and I cashed.
So
same course.
Super good player here.
A truly an amateur player where you show up and you shoot 980 and then you show up and shoot 900. It's one of those that was the life back for me. So
I remember in the physical leaderboard days, there was never, as a TD, there was never more shuffling than the MA1 division. The MPO and everybody else, they were pretty much where they were. But the MA2, you might have put somebody in 3 groups, drop somebody in 4 groups.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. So
okay.
And we didn't have a problem with it then. So, and I believe it was probably 10 years ago that maybe it was less than that, because I think we talked about it on this show when they changed it. Maybe it was 8 or 9 years ago.
I don't remember
that it was changed so you couldn't do it, and now again,
correct.
At least for the flex, you can, and I'm guessing that it'll move up in due time. Give him 2 years.
I got to count how many
2 years
divisions I think I'm only eligible for 2 total divisions.
Oh, I got 3.
Maybe
3 for me.
Maybe.
I mean, 3.
MPO, MA1, MP40 for me.
Oh, yeah. I guess I am the same.
No, because I've got MA40, MP40, MA1, and MPL.
So,
boom.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the right kind of brag. That you're eligible for
if you're
more.
If you're a TD in Wisconsin, you better be running a flex start January 1, and I expect JBD to play 4 times.
I'll do it. If it's allowed and it's there, I swear to God, I will do it. Every once in a while, I crest that 930 mark to get to like 931, and then I'm not eligible then for a division or 2.
For MA 40.
And I was like, but right now I am. Wide open, way wide open.
Johnny's got options.
I've got options.
Anyway, all right. So moving on from that, those are all related to flex league / flex starts. They're in that same realm. Is there any other significant changes to the tiers, A, B, C tiers, in terms of policies that might directly apply to any of those? Otherwise,
no. There's going to be no tier changes.
Okay.
We're discussing some modernization of tiers, but that won't be for 2026.
Okay. Excellent.
So as a player, we have this little list here of noted changes. Is there any other new changes that maybe surprised you or you're glad to see come into effect now? That maybe that are going to be released tomorrow?
The biggest change that is going to affect the most people, and this is a kind of a 180 on how we have done things in disc golf, is the enforcement rule, which is the throwers no longer going to get a vote in group decisions. Those are technically called determinations. So let's talk about the rule currently. Currently, every member of the group gets a vote, and if it's tied, That's where benefit of the doubt. I know we are all three very pro. You don't know what benefit of the doubt means.
I know I have to mute Terry's mic right here. So just
it kind of honestly got to the point where there was so much misunderstanding about benefit of the doubt. We decided it was time to make this change. So starting in 2026, assuming it goes through, is throwers know we're going to get a vote on group determinations, and it's very important to understand what a determination is. So determination is not things like foot faults and things like that. A determination is, am I in bounds or am I out of bounds? Did I make the mandatory? Did I cross? Like, I know I'm out of bounds, but did I touch in bounds? Right. So if I'm going to force them, those other three players are going to have that vote, and my vote is no longer part of that conversation. And then threesomes and fivesomes, the thrower gets a vote when there's a tie.
Okay.
Oh.
Threesome. Okay. So does a spotter or marshal have a vote, or do they get the final say? So say you are spotting hole 17, or no, we'll say hole 5 at USDGC. Someone tries to make the basket. It hyzers out on them. You say, nope, that didn't make it. That didn't make it. 3 of the group members come up and say, oh, we think it did. Or even 2 of them, and now it's a 2-2. Like, does a marshal or a spotter get a say?
Well, my favorite SAT answer is there's not enough information to answer that question. If the spotter is a tournament spotter or tournament official, then that person has the right to overrule any group determination. And a new rule for next year is that marshals have the right to overrule tournament officials.
Hierarchy.
So we're kind of building a hierarchy there, right? So that kind of explains, that situation. So let's assume that person is not a tournament spotter or not a tournament official or not a marshal. Then that spotter is just like it is now. That is just information for the group. And so if 3 people say, yeah, you crossed, doesn't matter what the spotter says, you crossed.
Which, by the way, is the most, sorry to interrupt, but that is the most
you're fine.
Common determination that we have right now. If we have 100 people out there with flags, I'm just going to make up a number and say we have 100 people that you see this year with flags in tournaments that are doing flagging. I'm going to say 95 of them have no official capacity other than indicating flags, and they can be overruled. They're not there in a tournament official capacity. They are there in a spotting capacity. But is it fair to say probably 90? Rarely does a tournament. It happens, but rarely a tournament goes to a spotter and says, "Hey, you're spotting, and what you say stands." Like that's not usually the case. Right?
It's probably 98 to 100, to be honest with you.
Okay. So I just want to put it out there that as you said, when these people are out there with their flags, we love them, we appreciate them. They are there to provide information, and they are there to help the group with what they saw. And in almost every case, they are able to be either overruled or ignored, even, for lack of a better term. It's rare that they are the power is invested in them. It can be, but it rarely is. I just want to throw that out there.
Think about Champions Cup is the last event that I marshaled. Think about all the holes and all the spotters. There were 2 tournament spotters or official spotters. And it was the green of 12 on the 3rd and 4th day, the par 5, where you had the island kind of way out, and had the option for like Ben Callaway to read it, that long second shot, right? And that was because there was almost no way to tell, did I hit the bank and kick back in or whatever, because that was not an island green. That was the last place in bounds. So we found some tournament officials and said, hey, or some certified officials and said, hey, those are tournament spotters. And then on 16 on the MPO, there was that really late mandatory that was very hard to see. So we had a tournament spotter for that purpose, right? So for the purposes of making the mandatory. But yeah, so it's still going to be down to the players, right? 99 times out of 100, that person is probably not a spotter. It's not a tournament spotter, I should say. But yeah, the marshals always have the right to overrule group determinations. The tournament officials have the right to overrule group determinations. So all that's really changing here is that, it's let's say it's the three of us and Phil Deloney playing, and now I say I'm in, I'm the thrower. I say I'm in. Phil says I'm in. Y'all's 2 votes don't matter, because now it's at worst 2-2. Benefit of the doubt goes to me. Now I would not be involved in that conversation. Is you two and Phil, the 3 of you, determining am I in bounds, yes or no? So then the follow up to that is like, well, okay, well, what happens if people are ganging up on me? I, as a player, always have the right to appeal group determinations, and then that's when the provisional process. It's not technically a provisional through an appeal process, but I can say I'm appealing your ruling as a group, and then that's when you settle it later and play it out both ways.
Well, I think you're slightly mistaken in saying that you don't have a vote. You definitely have input. You don't get a vote though. Like, we've seen people
stake your case.
We've seen people stake cases. We've seen people they turn into regular politicians.
Again, I thought of that too. As soon as you said you don't have the vote, the people are still going to voice their opinion. They're going to plead their case. But that when it comes down to, hey, there's 4 of us on the card, at that point, your vote doesn't, quote unquote, vote doesn't necessarily matter, is what you're saying.
I think it's really important here. Like, this rule in particular is probably going to look a little reactionary based on some things that have happened this year. I'll just, elephant in the room, the Adam Hammis situation in Waco, right? This rule was thought of and written way before all that happened. Very forward thinking. But the big difference here is that the current rule kind of has that flaw, especially in foursomes, where you only have to convince one person. And this fundamental shift makes it to where 2 people. Like, I might be able to convince Phil, but if I can't convince you 2, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I still, no matter how this rule is written, we still will always fall back to the secondary challenge, which is, I don't know, man, I didn't see it. Which is something else the group members can always say when they don't want to provide any form of feedback and or confrontation. They can just often just kind of cop out and be like, oh, I don't know, I didn't see where it went anyway, or I didn't see if it hit. I wasn't like they'll say things that will feel like it excuses
the tree
them
got
entirely.
in my way.
Yeah, so
I had a bad angle,
but it is what it is. I don't think there's a perfect scenario or system, but we're still going to hear plenty of that. I don't know, man. I didn't.
Sure, and we've added into this rule that abstaining from a group vote is a courtesy violation, right? So it's technically already a rule that says if you, how many times I wasn't watching, right? That's already a courtesy violation, right? So now if we're sitting there saying like, look, I mean, I got my opinion, but I'm staying out of this, right? That's now a courtesy violation as well. Whereas the current policy is a little gray on that. But if you flat out refuse to make a call on this situation, now that is being added as a courtesy violation because it is so important, because you're removing one of the votes of the group.
I think that's actually a great way to compromise. If that's right, you're getting a courtesy violation then. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. So they no longer have the vote. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in that realm of things we need to worry about. Obviously, well, in my opinion, at least on the highest levels, threesomes are more commonly found than fivesums. Is this applicable? Yeah, this would be applicable to all play, all divisions, all sanctions. This is a generic rule, so to speak, is what I'm saying.
Well, if you think about it, the threesomes and the fivesomes really is not changing, right? Because if you're in a threesome now, you would still get a vote and 2-1 wins. If you're a fivesome, 3-2 wins, right? It's really not that. It's not changing that much. The big shift is going to be foursomes, which is obviously what we see as a majority in our major and a lead and larger event play.
And but I'm saying this all applies to all events.
This is every single PDGA event, all the way down from league, all the way to the World Championships.
Okay.
So the one of the last things that we have on our list here is almost slightly related. You had said it before. Provisionals. Yep. Players now need to declare why they are calling a provisional, particularly. Can you go over that a little bit, as opposed to just, if I throw and I can't tell if it went OB or I missed the Mando, we always just said previously, if there's ever a question, just call provisional. Like, that was always just the fallout. They're the fallback. Walk us through the new provisional a little bit real quick here.
Yeah, so one of the big changes, ironically, for what you just kind of slipped was, did I miss the Mando? Currently, it is allowed to call a provisional when you might have missed a mandatory. That is being removed. So starting next year, you will not be able to call a provisional if you missed a mandatory. Well, why in the world would we make that change? Well, one of the most unknown PDGA Tour policies, which is in the Tour standards, we all know about island greens, right? You got to give waivers for island greens. We all know that. There is a waiver actually required for mandatories if your drop zone is more than 10 meters behind the mandatory. Because if you think about it, let's say your mandatory is 200 feet down the fairway, and you say, previous lie, it's essentially stroke and distance. That's the same argument that you're making why you can't do island greens. So if you don't have a drop zone within 10 meters of it, you technically need a waiver. So if you've got to walk basically 170 feet to get to the drop zone, you're not really saving much time to figure out, did I make this mandatory or not? So that's one thing. We're also clarifying, we're actually kind of getting a lot more strict on provisionals. We've noticed that provisionals are, to your point, JVD, like just kind of like, whatever, provisional, right? Mm-hmm. We're being a lot more clear about when you can and when you cannot take provisionals. So we're also clarifying that you cannot take a provisional when you are considering abandoning the throw. And so the abandoned throw rule is that anytime you can go to your previous lie with penalty. So why in the world will we do that, right? Well, let's say we're playing a short par 3. I throw a terrible shot way off. I hit the first tree and I kick way right. I'm like, man, that lie is so bad, I might abandon it. All right, provisional just in case I abandon it. And then I ace it. Well, guess what? I guess I'm going to abandon that throw because I just got a 3, right? And it's really important that I use that example because that kind of gets into why we're making the shift to declaring. A provisional should be used to save time, to get a rule right, or when something is unclear. The result of your provisional throws should not have any influence on why you're calling a provisional, right? So just as I threw in my shot, my rethrow, that's going to greatly influence whether I decide to take that provisional or not. I've actually had that happen marshalling on tour at D-Glow. 15, the really hard par 5, kind of off the mountain. They throw this crazy hyzers in the second shot, par 4. It's an incredibly difficult hole. And I remember Simon threw one way too deep into, he didn't hyzer in time. And he was like, man, I might lose that disc. Like, I don't want to have to turn around and walk all the way back up this hill. So I'm going to call a provisional for lost disc. And I immediately said, okay, just to let you know, like, you're doing the right thing. But let's say you get down there and you hate that lie. You cannot use that provisional for that abandoned throw. Like, even though it would be the same thing of basically rethrowing, that provisional is only for your lost disc, right? And that was a great example of why this rule needs to shift, right? Because if you are declaring your intent ahead of time and why you're doing a provisional, it solves some of that gray, crazy what if, right? Simon, I am throwing a provisional in case I lose my disc. I get down there, I find it. There is no question about which lie I should be playing. I said my provisional was for lost disc. Whether I just say provisional and then you throw, well, what's the provisional for? Is there out of bounds up there and you might rethrow? Like, just all these weird scenarios, right? So I think this is one of those things where 99 times out of 100, the provisional is pretty obvious. I don't want to have to walk around that lake. I don't know if I crossed. We'll figure it out, right? But that one time where it's a little weird, and that result of that throw, and not only that result of that throw can be influenced, but it's not clear why you're taking provisional. This one little extra change clarifies that you're not only starting a provisional sequence, we're calling it, you're explaining why you're starting a provisional sequence, and then you're also clarifying, especially when you have the same lie in a provisional, which is which. So for example, let's say that you land in a spot on a hole, and you're like, I don't know if this is a hazard, or I don't know if this is just normal inbounds. Like, I don't know what that line right there is. So in a hazard, you're going to play the same lie. It's just a matter of whether a penalty applies or not, right? Okay, this is the, like, that's not a provisional, right? That's an appeal of a lie, so there's just like all these little scenarios that we're really cleaning up, and we're trying to get away from this provisional culture, and really start to say, like, look, these are the times you should be playing a provisional, and when you are playing a provisional, here's what you have to do.
It's a mentality shift.
It is
for us
and
specifically,
and also just the example you gave. And I know the hole you're talking about, hole 15 out there at Deglow. Simon could throw it, what he feels like is in the Never Never Land, and if he just says, if he's thinking in his head, oh, that might be so bad, I want to abandon it. But he doesn't clarify that, and he just says, I'm throwing a provisional. Let's just say he throws a provisional and somehow throws it 300 feet left into a much worse territory. He could then just be like, I'm not going to worry about my provisional anymore. I'm just going to go with my original shot.
That's
and
right.
And again, not saying we all know Simon isn't one.
That's Simon.
Yeah, it is in the spirit. But per your example, I feel like that has sometimes, I've seen stuff of that nature somewhat play out. Like, well, I'm going to throw a provisional in case I want to abandon it, and then you throw a much worse shot. It's like, well, I really don't want to take that one either. I'm going to just stick with my original, and that's kind of the type of scenario you're looking to avoid and to eliminate.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like I said, I think 99% of these are going to be very similar. Yeah, provisional, I might be in bounds. Provisional, sure. I might be out of it. Like those are going to be the simple ones, but it's just these little more complex ones. And again, it's kind of a competition integrity move, but it's again, to the result of your provisional throw should have absolutely zero impact on the decision for why you're playing a provisional and which one you want to play. That's the provisionals are supposed to save time, and that's not has anything to do with helping you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Carney says, what's the rule on earthquakes? That's a good question. Have we had that problem? Has anyone? I'm sure at some point. I'm sure somewhere. At some point.
The rule on earthquakes?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know what rule you mean.
Like an active...
your mini gets swallowed up? You would...
Your threesome, somebody gets sucked into a hole, now we're a twosome? What do we do?
Yeah,
do we split up?
Disappears? I mean, I don't know.
I will go on record and say, if there is an earthquake, I don't really know if I care about disc golf.
That's probably a fair assumption there.
Valid.
All right. In terms of all the major stuff, I think we've hit on quite a few of them. Things we may not talk about or haven't talked about tonight or won't talk about tonight. What is the exact rollout plan? I know you've referenced stuff for tomorrow. What's the procedure when people can find it, and then conversation ensues? How does this move forward?
Yeah, so at 12 noon Eastern tomorrow, all of these will be released on PDGA.com. And it will include everything that we've talked about, as well as everything else. We have 5, 9, 15, 42 proposals, which is everything that we've talked about, and then just very, very minor clerical things, like we're going to change the word should to must. Just all these little clerical things that if we talked about here, we would just all be falling asleep.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just gonna say how many updates annually do fit under usually kind of that umbrella of like, hey, let's eliminate one word, let's change a should to could or a must to.
There's always a bunch of them.
You know.
Yeah. We have 5 major rule changes, 4 competition major changes, 6 minor changes on rules, 6 minor changes in the competition manual, 10 total clerical changes, and 11 changes in elites and majors. And to kind of categorize them, obviously elites and majors are different. Anything, whether it be clerical or major, anything that is applicable to just those events. But a major change completely fundamentally changes something about the way disc golf is played or scored, right? Excessive time is a major change. The provisional that we're talking about is a major change. All these things, the league is a major change, right? Those are completely different fundamental changes. A minor change doesn't change fundamentally how it's played, but maybe it changes something small about it. An example of a minor change is like we're changing the wording of relief area to required relief area, just to add a little clarification on when that's to help players, right? That's a minor change. It doesn't functionally change how it is, but we're calling it something different, right? And then clerical is just all the should, musts, and we're going to change this word. We're going to get rid of this sentence and put this sentence in, just all that terrible, boring stuff. But yeah, this is going to be public on noon tomorrow. All 40 whatever changes there are. It does have instructions of how you can submit your feedback. Feedback is so critical. It is not an arbitrary process. If there is, for anybody listening out there, if there's one thing you remember out of this conversation, it's this. That feedback process is not arbitrary. I will point no further to last year where we proposed at this point time extensions for every single PDGA event. Overwhelming feedback said, do not do this, and it did not happen. Right? That is not an arbitrary process.
Yeah,
we got overwhelming feedback, overwhelming positive feedback about the bathroom rule from women's, and we were kind of on the fence about that, and then that solidified this is something that we need to do, right? So we will have those instructions of how to do that. We accept comments through June 20th. Okay. And then at that point, we will take all of those comments. I personally will respond to every single one of them. I will log every single one of them. And then we will then review them with our rack and staff and say, we got 37 positives on this, 7 negatives on this. We all agree it's moving forward. Yep. Right. And that's probably 95% of them. Right. And then that 5% where there's overwhelming opposition or, it's 50-50, we're going to do discussion. And sometimes it's very similar to how time extensions, where last year we said, okay, this is not a good idea, but let's just think about this more. Let's think about, we like this concept. Yeah. And then we ultimately determined, okay, this is really only applicable to the tour. And then, this fall we'll come out with the official rules changes, which will look very similar to this. Might include new ideas, might include new things. It might include some of the stuff scrapped. That is truly an unknown outcome. But just please send that feedback, even if it's just as simple as like, hate, like, no, like, sure. Like, any feedback is important. And do it.
Two things that just came to mind. First of all, is there any changes in we'll just say nomenclature? Like, are we adjusting the definition of this word? Are we, I think we've kind of adopted C1 and C2, even though those are just words that came about by the invention of UDisc and the Pro Tour and so on. But is there any I would call them maybe minor, but minor changes in that sense of words or phrases or clarifications there?
No, and like if, C2, obviously we all know what we're saying. I was very particular when I was talking about the 30, 45, 30 rule that I said within 20 meters of the target, because technically C2 is not defined, but it's, spoiler alert, it's not a coincidence we chose 20 meters there, right?
Sure.
But no, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, something like that would be major, because that's a fundamental change of a concept, right? Where we would be introducing C2. But, I know there's been a lot of talk about the putting circle and step putts and jump putts.
Well, that's kind of where I was going
That's
next.
where I'm going.
Yeah, because it was Doug Bjerkes last year who had a great video who said, hey, we're entertaining the idea of, rules continue to evolve and change in all sports. We are also could be subject to just that. And obviously you guys have this major discussion every single year in terms of all the rules. But specifically, is there anything that's has any legs or movement, so to speak, any steps forward on
I like it
on jump putting or foot faults or anything of that nature?
So this is going to sound like a little bit of a political cop-out answer. We're always exploring things, right? But it's so true. For the 40-something things that we're putting through, we've got, 5 to 10x of things that are still being talked about behind the scenes, right? So are we looking at an expansion of the circle? Of course we are. Are we looking at ways to ensure that step putting or jump putting is, legal or illegal? Of course we are. But the current proposed 2026 changes do not have anything regarding stance, do not have anything regarding supporting points. Jump putting and step putting has never been defined in the rules. The rules have always been about supporting points and at time of release. And there are no proposed changes to the putting area. The only thing that is of note is that we are saying, for the time, we are saying 20 meters instead of putting area, and that is simply because we don't want somebody taking 45 seconds on a 35-foot putt.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
We know you're a huge Smasher. You listen every week, so you already know my proposal. Make the lie bigger. Don't let anyone go past the disc. I don't care if you jump. I don't care if you step, but your step has to be behind that disc. I don't care if you start 8 feet behind your disc, as long as you land within 3 feet of your lie. Make the lie make your lie bigger behind the disc, and don't let anyone step putt past it or jump putt past it. If you jump putt, you got to land. Your supporting point has to be behind the disc. You have to maintain balance. That's it. I'm sure I'm missing something, but to me, it solves so many issues. I hate the bang bang calls. I hate the people that are like, it's too close to call. My philosophy is, if a rule is that, and I don't say ambiguous, but that difficult to make happen, it's not a good rule, and something needs to be addressed. So,
I mean, that's the genesis to revelation of rule writing, right? You see something, and you kind of have to ask yourself, like, let's just talk about step putting. Like, we know that step putting and jump putting can be illegal from outside 10 meters, right? By the letter of the rule, we know it's illegal. And we kind of have to have this exercise of like, well, should this be okay or should it not be okay? Okay, if it's okay, why is it okay? And how do we change the rule to make it okay? Yeah. And if it's not okay, how do we clarify that this rule says that it's not? And messy, long conversations. It sounds so much like a cop-out to say it is just not as simple as saying you can't step putt.
Yeah.
It's not that simple, right? And I know that's not what you're saying. I've probably thought of or heard of 15 to 20 different ideas. And the problem with every idea I hear about those, no, this is a perfect example. The problem that I always see is that idea solves this problem, but it creates this problem over here.
And that's exactly
the ultimate. Yeah. You gotta do the calculus of A to B to C to E, and then finally F doesn't have a problem. And then is it worth changing B, C, D, and E to make A work? And that's just the annual conversations that we just constantly have. That was why most of my beard is gray.
And I have completely acknowledged that in saying that, I say that I've come up with the perfect rule, but I don't know how necessarily it cascades down to, 802.B.1. Roman numeral 3. There's so many things that get involved when you start changing, especially a major aspect of our sport like that you have to think through all the consequences, and it's not just as easy as I want to make it sound. I clearly know that, and I'm only slightly joking, in my idea. But I know I'm right.
Because of your previous answer, saying that we've essentially touched on a lot of the major stuff. Another one that is commonly that gets refreshed, and it's going to continue to refresh more and more as we move forward, is video evidence and things of that nature.
Sure.
I assume those conversations are just continuing within the Rules Committee as to
Absolutely.
where and when and how that may or may not ever be applicable, and booth reviews and actual video evidence from any given media crew on site, so on and so forth. Where is there an easy way to kind of address where that stands?
Yeah, I mean, so of course, and again, that's one of the 5 to 10x things that are there behind the scenes that we're talking about, right? I think of the example that I always bring up with this conversation is the hole 17 at USDGC, where there's a stationary camera, right? So if USDGC came to us and said, I want to use video review on hole 17, I think I'm okay with that. I would support that waiver request because every single player in the field is subject to that stationary camera, right? But do I support video review on the network when the top 3 cards or top 4 cards or the guy in the 7th card killing it and they run a camera out there? I do not, because why is that fair that certain cards are subjected to it and certain cards are not? The reason why video review is so prevalent in sports is because they've got every single, like in football, you've only got 120 yards to worry about, right? Even in golf, when they have video review, they have cameras on every single hole, everywhere, right? I don't think technology we're at that point yet. But if there's an element of a stationary in certain holes or certain spots, I would support that. But I mean, that's and to be honest with you, when we have these conversations, what I bring back is like, well, what you're actually doing is arguing for final nines again, where you only have the top 4 players, right? Because then those players are now subject to it because the entire thing is on video. So, it's weird how things, old things get kind of rehashed and are now new again. But it's a pretty hard line for our committee where it's just simply not fair that certain groups are subject to it and certain groups are, and the rest of the field is not. That just doesn't seem like competition first, media second, right? And it just doesn't pass the smell test, is the easiest way to say it.
And coming from a media guy myself, I still wouldn't, you're going a little further than even I would. I wouldn't even consider the stationary cam because there's so many other variables. Like, did the cameraman pan fast enough to see where it went on inbounds versus on one card versus another? To me, having only one camera, there's too much. Again, we've talked about football and other sports, golf, where they've got many stationary cameras usually for every hole. Just even the one stationary camera to me just feels it's just not enough. I wouldn't. I wouldn't even go with that personally. I
use 17 as an example. Yeah. I use 17 as an example, not only because I know there's a stationary camera there, but because it doesn't matter if you crossed or not. It's an island green.
Yeah.
It's where right. So it would be for the other elements, right? I could see it on a hole I could see a camera on like hole 7, for the mandatory, like all these and let me be clear. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that
that would be a start.
Just as we're starting to allow to multiple entry into flex starts, like if we're going to start somewhere with video review, it's going to be either some stationary element or some final nine element, where it's consistently applied amongst the people playing.
Okay. I'm going to read a few of these off the board. We can go a little more rapid speed with them.
Well, before you do that, can I ask one more big one?
I guess.
All right. On the board, and I don't know if this is necessarily a rules committee thing or if this is a bigger PDGA thing. The transgender issue. As far as, is that a rule? Is that something that the rules committee is looking at? Or is this a bigger PDGA question that needs to be addressed? Because ultimately it comes down to being a rule but as we all know, this is a bigger subject than any of us really would probably even care to delve into at this point.
Sure. So the rules of play do not dictate who is eligible to enter certain divisions.
Perfect.
That is competition standards, which is a whole different discussion. And we've been very clear on the challenges and some of the legal situations that we've faced with this situation. That's all I'm really comfortable saying. But this is so you will see absolutely nothing about that in the rule changes, and that is neither a statement of support or a statement against that situation, simply because the rules do not dictate who is eligible to play. It only dictates how you play the game.
Perfect. That's
all right.
I just wanted to make sure that we chatted about it because it was brought up on the board just 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things that people maybe are confused about who and how that decision is made. So that to me perfectly clears it up. So,
yeah, and I was going to say this is the time to have that conversation when we're talking about what will be applied in 2026 and that question continuing to loom. So I totally agree that it makes sense to be asking it now. Another one here, Ed, just asking. I'll slightly rephrase it and ask: will there be a day or a time where we see marshals or officials essentially on every card so that players don't have to make calls on each other, is what Ed is asking. Are we going to get to a point where resources and or just we're required to have that many marshals and officials out there?
Yeah, I mean, we could do it right now, right? It would just cost, it cost about $3,000 per official when you factor in travel expenses and everything like that, right? And
sure.
And you go look at a payout for an event, and there's $30,000 or $40,000 added, and then you do 3,000 times 18, and all of a sudden there goes all that money, right? So it's just not a fiscally intelligent decision to do now. If we ever got to the point, man, if a Coca-Cola or somebody like that decides to drop $1 million on the tour, I would still argue it's not the time to do it. Like, that's not a good use of those resources and that funding. It's not a simple answer. Of course, we wish marshals were on every card or on every hole, even if and I've said this a couple of times on various Facebook pages, and even the 18-hole example doesn't work when you factor in the length of holes. It doesn't work in an event like Ledgestone where the women are in a completely different place at the same time. It doesn't, how do you do something like if you had an event back at Santa Cruz where it's a 27-hole course, just on and on and on and on and on and on, and all these problems. I think, obviously the role of marshals has been, a hot topic based on what happened at Champions Cup. So I understand the question, but it's not that we can't do it. It's just not the fiscally best decision for our events and our players. And I think that the players would be much, much more angry, and the fans would be much more angry with literally negative added cash at their events for someone to walk with them. But I could see something like the Tour Championship. Like, I've marshaled the Tour Championship before, where there's only 4 groups on the card, and then we did have a marshal with every card, and we were much more involved in that because we knew every card had an official. And again, I'm kind of making the point for why Final Nines make a lot of sense. I'm a big Final Nine proponent, right?
We couldn't tell.
Final Nines kind of solve some of those problems.
No, I'm a big 8-round Worlds fan too. So
yeah,
let's bring them back.
That's back when, those were my days.
These wimps that are complaining about 5 rounds.
Oh,
I have to learn a second course.
I played 8
on 3 or 4 courses. So please don't come to me with your tears.
Yeah, exactly. You big babies. One of the other questions, Andrew asks, my big thing is that ratings count for events that have less stringent rules. Why do they count? And I guess you would apply that maybe to our previous conversation about allowing, we'll say, beer and a few other relaxed rules at a league or at a Flex C tier. Those same ratings that you acquire there are technically as weighted the same as if I'm playing an A tier with much more stringent rules. So his question is, why do they still count?
Well, at the end of the day, if a player is concerned about that, they have the right not to play these events. And A tiers are going to have much stronger fields than a C tier with a C tier flex start. So the ratings really are going to be hard to compare anyway. I'm truly not trying to avoid the question. Ratings is not one of my fortes. That is not something I'm super knowledgeable about. And that's not me trying to avoid it. It's just, that is not something I'm involved in on staff. So I don't know too much about them.
Yeah, I feel like they're in a lot of those are chill and more relaxed and laid back. As an introductory level, I guess I think of maybe it's a terrible analogy, but I think of if I'm in a Tuesday night bowling league and I generate a handicap and or average, and where that is or isn't maybe applicable in other places, where Tuesday night maybe you're drinking and things are more laid back, but it's still kind of my average when I play in a more serious league on Friday or my handy. I don't know. I guess I don't know how all those things work. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that it's a deal breaker. And also, I think if anyone's too stuck on rating, if you're too stuck on ratings, and ratings are very important and very personal to people, and they're great for 100 reasons, but I don't know if I feel like you're missing the point if ratings are the sole thing that somebody is playing for and are concerned about. Then again, maybe not. Some people hate other people, and all they care about is how they're doing against their own rating and their own process and improvements too. So I guess I understand that. Anyway,
it's arguably our biggest member benefit, right? A handicap system.
For sure.
I understand it for sure.
Yeah, it's a fair question. All right, I don't know if there's others. Ryan's out on the board, says you can choose not to, but others can play them and get easy ratings. Well, the one thing I'll quickly say, and I feel like there's this, a lot of people will say, well, I only play a flex start at my local course, and a bunch of other people play flex starts or leagues. Just so you know, everybody else then should be dialed too, right? So knowing that if you shoot a 10 under only at your local course, because you play it all the time, and you have 10 other buddies that always shoot a 9 or 10 or 11 under, the ratings aren't going to be exceptionally high, right? So just because you play somewhere really well all the time, I don't feel like always gives you a ratings boost or bump, because other people probably have it dialed too, and ratings kind of help reflect that a little bit. So anyway, I'm just trying to read real quick through the board and see if anyone has other conversation things since we've got you here, Robert. I feel like we've hit. Yeah. I feel like we've hit everything that we need to for here. There might be other stuff that we can talk with people, but I'm in terms of stuff that's addressable to you, I think you're off the hook.
I think everybody wants to know, how did you do at your C tier yesterday?
Ooh, let me fact check. Let me see. Be careful what you say.
So one of my favorite events of the year, a good buddy of mine, Max Krotz, run it. It's called the GVDG, which stands for Greenville Disc Golf Mando Madness. And there are like 30 mandatories on the course. And props to Max, he does them by the letter of the rule. I'm talking restricted planes everywhere.
Wow.
He tapes hula hoops to baskets and defines the restricted plane as anywhere outside of that hula hoop and past a line. So if you go to Max Krotz's Facebook page, if you know, he's got pictures of Schwebby. Schwebby plays it. I played with Schwebby yesterday. It's amazing. We had a guy, Blake Poland, that had a chance at an 1100 rated round. He shot 1087 the first round, and he bogeyed a hole that was so easy that I birdied it twice.
Slight flex
and
there.
He would have been over 1100. So if you look at his first round,
1088. Yeah, shot a 45, which is a 1088.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I think we need to end this whole conversation. Schwebby took second. I mean, that's all I need to know this isn't a.
And obviously, Robert, just playing with Schwebby. Does this mean that North Carolina is going to kick Schwebe out of the Hall of Fame. He was just inducted this weekend.
Today, yeah.
Are you the
I'm
JD Vance to the Pope? Are you the JD Vance to Schwebe? Like he's
No.
Ouch.
No, I'm the administrator of the North Carolina Hall of Fame as well. So yeah, he was elected to our North Carolina Disc Golf Hall of Fame. We got one more coming tomorrow. It's a new thing. We're super stoked about it. But yeah, I always say if I'm playing with Schweberger, it was either the first round or a great weekend, and it was the first round yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
So we've been we've all been friends for a long time. We've known Schwebe forever. And because we're probably not going to have him on, sorry, Schwebe. Quickly sell us on why Schweberger should be in the North Carolina Hall of Fame from your perspective. I mean, I know that I would like you to rattle it off for us.
The winningest player in history from North Carolina. He's won 2 majors, one of which occurred in the state of North Carolina. He's won a Bob West Sportsman of the Year. He's the second player ever to shoot an 1100 rated round, which happened at a North Carolina event. He's designed courses in North Carolina, and it was a no-brainer. I'm one of the voters. I voted for him last year. He barely missed the cut last year because we had the Harold Duvals and the Alan Beavers and all these guys. But he is the first person to get in solely based on play, and which says a lot about his play. There are 2 North Carolinians that I have never beaten, and he is one of them. So and I have played a lot of disc golf with Schweb. Beaten him in rounds, right? But I've never beaten him in a tournament.
And it's funny that you bring that up because here in Wisconsin we've had this discussion amongst some of us about Hall of Fames, and every state maybe not every state, but many states have their own particular Hall of Fame, and being a player versus being like a founder. Our sport is so young right now that we are still inducting so many of our founders into Hall of Fames that some of the players are like, the most winningest player in North Carolina history is just getting into, his state's Hall of Fame. And we're seeing that in Wisconsin as well, where we now have to start look at, all right, cool. We've inducted most of the founding state people that originated the tour, that have been running events for 15 to 20 years, that have put courses in the ground. Now we're starting to be like, who else deserves to be? What players deserve? Even if they're just players, they haven't done anything. And obviously, I'm not saying this about Schwebe, but in general, like maybe you've just been a player for 20 years, and you're things like that. It's really interesting where we are in a sport and all these little individual Hall of Fames and how those determinations are made.
Schwebe has the highest finish of any player from North Carolina in the MPO and the Worlds. He's got a 3rd place. Nobody's ever finished 1st or 2nd or 3rd except him. 2004 in Iowa. Mm-hmm. And he is the one of only 2 people to ever finish 1st or 2nd in any major. And of course, the first one was Jeremy Colling, who won that USCDC. But Schwebe finished 2nd in like 05, 06, something. It was one of the years that Barry killed everybody. When he was in that run. But I mean, when you factor in his pure dominance and his sportsmanship, and he PDGA Senior Player of the Year last year. I mean, we're still kind of, to your point, JBD, we're still kind of in the no-brainer elections. And when we release tomorrow's, it'll be another like, oh yeah, of course. So.
Nice. Well, congrats, of course, to Schwebe. I saw that announcement earlier today as well, and pretty cool. As of today, since he couldn't get it done yesterday, he's sitting at 439 wins. So,
and without exaggeration, probably 120 of them were I was in the field.
Someday when he has to throw left-handed, you got your chance. All right, MTL, Robert, Leonard, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully everybody can, take not only what you said in these explanations, but then also see that there's a process, because far too often we have a lot of armchair, quarterbacks or
referees
and everything else in between. And I get it. There's frustrating things that are disappointing to players, spectators, fans. There's a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of goofy nuances. We're an outdoor sport that's just learning how to have real spectators, like real quantities of spectators. And we're an outdoor sport trudging through 20 to 60 acres of woods typically on most weekends. And as much as it seems like it should be black and white, there's so much more to it. And we're also a sport that's still not exactly drowning in sponsorship money week in and week out. So I think we continue to forge forward. And I want to just say thank you to everybody who has any part of this official capacity and process. So many people say, what's the PDGA even do for me? Well, these are the types of things. You guys put in hundreds of hours and then collectively all get together and agree and disagree and compromise and then write policies and then revise policies and take feedback. You do all of those things that 99% of people will never know or recognize or realize is actually happening behind closed doors or on these long weekends and these long conference calls. And I very much appreciate it. Johnny does as well. Everything that all of those volunteers, paid staff, non-paid staff, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people doing a whole bunch of work, and I for one, very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that and echo everything you just said. And we appreciate here at the PDGA, you guys, and you guys have always been huge supporters of the PDGA. We appreciate that, it's okay that you don't agree with us and you kick us sometimes, and that's okay, right? You should, right? But when I reached out to you a couple weeks ago, Terry, and said, hey, we got this kind of crazy idea. Can we hijack your show for a night? So I just want to recognize that I appreciate you saying yes. And just appreciated the phone conversation that we had that day and sharing some updates with each of us, and don't see each other enough. But again, yeah, thank you guys so much for everything. And just thanks for being supporters of the PDGA. Yeah.
Are you coming up for USWDGC?
I am not, no. So when I shifted off of operations and logistics, I don't travel anymore.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's making a lot of the Pro Tour players happy that I'm not there, and my wife very happy.
I was gonna take you out to a dinner, but now I won't.
Well, it was just gonna be a church or a bar or cheese, right?
Yeah. Both. It was the church bar. Come on, somewhere between Baraboo and here on some back road because there was a construction on the highway I had to take.
Well, again, thank you to yourself along with everyone else. We appreciate it. Hopefully our little platform here provided some insight and questioning, but also just an overall microphone so that people could hear more about what's going on. And so thank you for reaching out and having the chat with us. So with that, have a good night. All right, take care.
Thanks, pal. Robert Leonard from the PDGA. Say it again. What's his super fancy title? He's
Come
like
on, you
senior.
Didn't commit this to memory. He's senior policy and compliance officer.
He's an officer. Sorry, Ossifer. But now it doesn't matter if I'm playing a flex. I can get Ossifer that right up.
Yeah, you get yourself all wasted and stuff.
Well, good for honestly. We've known Robert for 20 years, and we've played with it. We literally played with him at Am Worlds and other big events, and I couldn't think of a better person for the position that he's in. And it's overall, the PDGA is better for having him.
Well, thank you. I know Todd Lyon, who also is kind of in this camp, he was out there on the board a little bit. He often chimes in when usually we're making mildly or grossly inaccurate statements on here. So I appreciate Todd always being available on our chat board from time to time as well. And I saw that he was out there and probably a few others. So thank you again to everybody. And thanks for the insight and the information. With that, real quick, before we get into any of the actual play, did I see three separate weddings this weekend?
Well, you tell me about the weddings.
I'll do that because what I think I saw. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Usually
I
do.
I wasn't fully immersed in all things social media over the weekend, but if I understand correctly, our boy Matty O officially tied the knot with Natalie.
Funny and granted that no shock. I didn't realize he was engaged.
Oh, well, you haven't been out there for.
I have. You're right, and I haven't seen him. It's funny because he clearly doesn't post a ton on his Instagram about just in general. Because I think I follow him on Instagram. So
yeah, well, they've been together for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I believe the first time I met her was a couple of years ago down at Pot of Gold, taking place in Louisiana. No big surprise there. But I believe they were just officially knotted up. They officially
tied the
knot this weekend, from my understandings. So congratulations to him and them.
Does it say or what disc golfers showed up to his wedding? That's really what we care about.
No, or is it no, because it's so funny
quiet?
how disc golfers are so scattered this weekend, literally everywhere, and that leads to another wedding that I believe I saw, if I understood the socials right. Hannah Blumroos officially married.
Yes, yeah, and I did see that photograph with Evelina as a bridesmaid.
100% expected.
Yep. And and I believe another disc golfer that she's just a local in that region.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay.
So
congratulations. Now, I believe at one point I might have met her significant other. I cannot say that I know him, but congratulations to them. That's what it looked like I saw on the socials. And then another person that we've known for quite some time is one of the longest sponsored single company sponsored players in disc golf, who has been with one particular manufacturer for so long.
It's got to be Innover Discraft then, probably.
And she has been a staple there for a really long time.
Am I going to get this?
You'd need a hint or two.
All right, what's the sponsor?
DGA.
Oh. I don't know then.
I'm surprised you're drawing a blank.
Yeah, I'm...
Christy King.
I was good. You heard me start to mumble it too, and I second guessed myself when I wouldn't have got it without the DGA, and then I was like, yeah, I dropped a K, but then I pulled back on it, so no points for me.
Christine King, KK, as she's been known as. I apologize. I do not know what her last name, if assuming she takes it. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. That I don't know. But she'll probably. I would think she would keep her golf name because she's famously maybe. Nah. Anyway, I believe she also tied the knot this last weekend. I feel like there was one more that now has escaped me, but
that's three.
Three disc golf weddings of higher profile players that I know. So, congratulations to all of them. A couple anniversaries, wedding anniversaries. Our good friend Johnny Rumble had a wedding anniversary. I think Tom Jenkins, Daddy J locally. Yeah.
John Turlap as well, or no?
Probably. Wow. Yeah, they always, all of them. So, happy anniversary to all those old school disc golfers that have long-term anniversaries.
Let's get into a little bit of disc golf talk. Actual play. Konopiste Open, presented by Disc Mania. This was over in the Czech Republic. And if you missed it, it's hard to blame you because I watched some of the MPO. I was able to watch. No, I can't say I wasn't able to watch the FPO. I was able to do whatever I wanted to. I slept because the FPO usually ended about 7 in the morning, 6:30 to 7 in the morning. And I just honestly wasn't getting up that early. So sorry, FPO, on this one. But I did watch some of the MPO, and we'll talk about them real quick first. Mari Wielman handily wins this one by 6 strokes, taking home $8,500 US. Second place, I don't say coming off the couch because he played, I believe, last week. We talked about him, but after a hiatus, getting back into the DGBT, second place, Lori Lettinen. Shoots a 34 under par for $4,700. In third place, Nestori Tukkanen. A tie for fourth place between Vino Makala and Dennis Augustusson. Is it Augustusson or Augustsson? I think it's Augustsson.
I think it's Augustusson.
But that adds an extra vowel in there because if you read it it's Augustsson.
You're going to try and make sense of English or foreign languages?
Well, we talk about Niklas.
Yeah.
And too many people say, Niklas.
Yeah, like Nicholas.
But as we would pronounce it in the U.S., but it's Niklas, so it's Niklas. And so Augustsson there's not a next round. So I'm going to go with Augustsson.
You're wrong, but it's okay.
I don't know.
I'm almost positive you're wrong on that one.
Right.
Normally I went just like on a hunch, but I'm almost positive it's Augustsson.
But you're looking at the name, right? Right there?
Yeah.
And there's not a vowel between the two S's.
There's
and
there's also not a B. There's not a B sound in subtle, is there?
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm just saying you're adding a syllable in there.
I get
normally you hide
that.
those, and I'm not questioning because it's a foreign language. I'm just saying I'm going to go with Augustsson. In 6th place, Eetu Tominen. A 3-way tie for 7th place between Silver Lot Roland Koer. Oh, I'm sorry. There's more than 3. Wow. I scrolled down a little bit.
6-way tie.
Yeah. Joni Peltonen, Henrik Halland, Oni Ruusinen, sorry, and Niklas Antila. And I'm stopping there while I'm probably behind.
You had Peter Lunde.
So, I did talk about, you and I had a conversation off camera, and I did say Peter Lunde. But in general, I got to watch some of this, and Mori just absolutely crushed the field. I watched a lot of the second round, and it was pretty funny how I believe it was the second round. I'm going to bring up the whole scores here, the live scoring, and he had, it was the second round because the chase card was lighting it up on the second round. And the whole lead card, I think, started out like par. And so there was all this talk, but the announcers were talking about like, oh, this chase card is catching, these guys are just can't get anything going. And then suddenly, Mori just is like, all right, I'm here to play.
I'm awake.
4 in a row, gets a par. 4 in a row, gets a par. And finishes off with 5 in a row. Really just at that point after the second round, not that anything solved or finished, but I believe he had a 6-stroke lead going into the final round, and it was lights out. Like there was, on this course, which is at Konopiste, it's an easy course. Like there's not a lot of challenge to it when you can throw as far as these guys do. So a lot of the scores were between 8 and 12. There just wasn't a ton of scoring separation. It's a beautiful course to watch. It looked like a lot of fun to play, but there are a lot of birdies. And so you had to score, basically, as we saw, round 3, he ended up at 40 under par. So I was about to say 10 to 12 under par just to be keeping up. And on the final day, round 2, he shot a 14. Round 3, slowed down a little, only shot a 13. So ultimately, Mori Vielman he birdied his last 7 holes. There's no one was catching him. He's so smooth, and I love his putt. I really do. He gets up there like he's going to take a bunch of time, and then he's just got this fun little wrist snap from like 50 to 60 feet and in. It doesn't look like he puts much in it, but a ton of spin, and it just right at the basket. It's so much fun for me to watch. And yeah, that was your MPO. I don't really have much more to say about it because, again, I didn't watch a ton other than the MPO. FPO, Kristen wins this one by 4 strokes. I did watch the end of the first round because I was up really early, and I saw Rachel Turton. By the time I tuned in, it was literally the last few holes. She parred out, but was in a lead after the first round. She shot an 8 under par. Kristen was at 5. I don't think there was really any question because anyone could have won at that point. Kristen didn't look as good as Kristen normally looks, but then rounds 2 and 3, she really picked it up. She shot a 5 first round, then comes out with an 11 and follows that up with a 10. Silva finished with a 12 on the final round to be able to move up 2 spots into second place. Third place was Rachel. Fourth place, Ida Nessie. Tied with, go ahead.
Anale Tugas Monaste.
Thank you. In 6th place, Anniken Sten. In 7th place, Jenny Karpinen. Tied with Katie Tate. 8th place, you think it's Julia or Yulia?
I would assume Yulia.
All right.
That'd just be my guess. Because very rarely do we see
the J's pronounced. All right. I'm going with Yulia. And that's where I'm ending it, at 9th place.
Okay.
10th place.
Kaidia Salu. Christina. I'm guessing
it's Christina, but I wasn't going to try to pronounce it. I felt bad not pronouncing. Come on, Terry, get that last name in.
Yurakova. Yurkakova. I do not know her. So I'm not nearly as confident.
I've never heard you mention her, and normally we chat a lot about.
Yeah, local. What flag? I'm sorry. What flag is that? That's maybe
Czech Republic. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So do not know her. Kaidi Asalu out of Estonia. I do know. Anyway, awesome.
And I don't normally do this, but if you want, probably know a little bit more about the FPO division in this. Go listen to the Party Podcast. They usually focus real heavily on FPO. I didn't watch hardly any of it due to the timing of it, so I don't want to. I don't want to make a lot of assumptions on this. Kristen. There was kind of an assumption she was going to win, and if not, it probably would have been an upset.
Okay.
You want to talk about any other events going on this past weekend? There was the 2025 Rocket City Blast presented by Westside. That was over in Huntsville, Alabama. Matteo would have won had he not been getting married. So instead, JJ Campbell wins this one. Second place, Clint Kelvin, Isaiah Morgan, and Grady Shue over on FPO. Scroll. Cadence Burge wins this. And second place was Shelby Cohen. So Cadence Burge, who just last week, I believe it was, won an MA1 event.
Yes, she did not have anyone to compete against in FPO, and so instead played in the MA1 division. She went on to win that. And this is all in the midst of, in the last couple of weekends, her officially graduating high school. So congratulations to her.
We are so old.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. Kayak Point was happening, the Go Throw guys, so that's not going to be on the PDGA tour, but we did see some posts from Kayak Point. I know that there was an issue. Ace Run maybe had a little bit of a struggle with regard to something about releasing the footage. I'm guessing hard drive, SD cards. There's, unfortunately, I hate reading any media crew.
It probably makes you cringe.
It just breaks my heart, because I know in order to, where you finally get to the point where you have to post and say it's not going to be out, it's just heartbreaking. So whatever the case might be, hopefully things are all on the up and up, but I know that can be a little bit heartbreaking. Are you seeing some results?
No, I went to the Go Throw site, and unfortunately, I click on leaderboard and it brings up the most recent one, but it's still Eagles Crossing. They've got the Hideaway in Persimmon Ridge. So unfortunately, from what I can see, they do not have.
It must not be on their specific.
Yeah,
site,
you could probably dig it up on UDisc.
Oh, here we go. I think I may have coincidentally just clicked on it, but I do not see. Never mind. I do not see the results posted on UDisc. So I am unsure as to what happened.
Do you know what that means? Go watch their videos. Go support them right now. Go figure out who won by watching the videos. And I know they had...
That's a good way to avoid spoilers.
I'm just...
Is to not post the results.
No results. Guess what? You can't know results.
No, I genuinely have no idea what happened, and I did not consume any disc golf videos this weekend by any of the crews. So...
You're too busy getting beat up by by blackjack dealers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the Auburn Open over in Auburn, California, and MPO winning this one was Josh Anthon. Second place was Trent Somerville and Isaiah Oliver over on FPO. All by herself, Gabrielle Lee wins that. And we'll move over to, I believe it's in Moline, Illinois, the Rumble, an event we've covered in the past. One of our first years we covered the Rumble. Evan Walker wins this over Gillis McDougall. And in third place, Nathan Queen and Thomas Earhart. Thomas Earhart, who was just in Wisconsin like a week or two ago with Mason Ford at our Zobel Open. And Mason Ford won that pretty handily. Shot, I think, a 17 under, which is a darn good score on that course. And there was no FPO to be spoken of at the Rumble. And I believe we've got the Mint Disc presents the 34th annual Capital of Texas Open, an HOTT qualifier in Austin, Texas. GT Hancock wins over Logan Plake and Elijah Cleary moving down to, or not. Come on, computer, scroll. There we go, scrolling. FBO with Stephanie Vincent winning over Madeline Payton. And then finally, last but certainly not least, the Greenfoot Energy Dieppe Open over in New Brunswick, Canada. Thomas Gilbert. I figured it would be one of two names. Thomas Gilbert wins
Or
that.
Martin Endel.
Or Martin Endel. That's who I was guessing. Thomas Gilbert wins this over Hubert Vacken. That's a name I have not heard before. Third place was Chris Zolens. And in FPO, Colleen McInnes wins by a single stroke over Chantel Bedinsky. Those are all your big events this particular weekend. Congratulations to everyone who competed. Actually, you know what? Is this a MP40 event? Yeah, I don't need to mention that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're good then.
All righty. I like it.
Cool beans, you'd say?
I wouldn't say cool beans.
Okay, I would.
I know others that would.
I say cool beans.
I would not go with cool beans. I don't know if I've ever uttered that phrase. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never uttered that phrase.
I say cool beans and okie dokie.
That I can get on board with.
There you go. So, just want some okie dokie.
I don't know if we have anything else that we need to worry about here in the regular show. We could potentially then wrap things up and have a brief after show. It feels like the time flew by quickly. I'll say that. To think that we've already been on 2.5 hours is crazy. So,
and as Robert said, he's long-winded.
Said that?
He did say that.
I
about
got
himself.
lost in some other numbers.
Get lost in his eyes.
Yes.
But he's on the right podcast to be long-winded. Let's be honest.
As somebody would say, we got time for that.
We do have time.
Something like that. What we're going to do is go ahead. We're going to close out the regular show. We're going to take a super quick break. Then when we come back, we'll start an after show where we can talk about things disc golf or non-disc golf related. And one of the highlights always being the giveaway.
2 giveaways this week.
In fact, yeah, we got to double up. We got a little extra giveaway action because I was out of country last week. So we're going to have 2 giveaways here this week, and we'll go from there. So with that, we're going to call it. We want to thank Robert Leonard and all of the crew, volunteers and otherwise, committee members, chair staff, liaisons, officers, junior, senior, whatever they all are. I want to thank everybody for that diligence of working on the rules. Make sure you read up more on the PDGA site, and then make sure you provide feedback. All of this is irrelevant if you don't provide feedback. And you can say you absolutely love some of these things, or say how much you hate them, and then hopefully you articulate why. Don't just leave a piece of feedback of saying, like, this rule sucks, because that does nobody any good. I think that's officially called constructive criticism. So if you're going to leave some form of feedback, make sure it's somewhat constructive, and then you'll be listened to, and we'll see what can happen from there. For Johnny V, I'm the Disc Golf Guy, along with MTL, a.k.a. Robert Leonard from the PDGA. This has been podcast 559. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see you in the after show. You step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV Podcast 559's After Show.
That after show lasted longer than the money at your blackjack table that we were at this weekend.
I was trying to do when I was driving home that night. Johnny and I attended the local Potawatomi casino.
Well, I was alone this weekend because my family went up north. Mm-hmm. They abandoned me, which I was fine with, actually. And we were back and forth a little bit, and you said, hey, you want to go out for a drink? So we met up at a local establishment who's a supporter of disc golf, the Explorium, and had a few drinks. And when we were done, we were like, it's late, but not like crazy late, especially not for you. And so we decided we would wander over to Potawatomi.
Yeah, just down pretty close to where we already were. And I was trying to decide on, as I was driving back, well, the full scope is the minimum betting limit at Potawatomi now every night of the week for blackjack tables is $25. And I was just there a few weeks ago, kind of a longer, silly story. I left up some money, not a ton, just a couple $100, and playing blackjack. With some people.
Humble brag.
And not really. But and the time before that I went, I was fortunate enough that I know specifically when I was there, I had won a little bit of money. Whoopee. I feel like if you literally leave $5 up, like this feels like such a huge win, just because that means you had some willpower at some point. Maybe you were up 1,005, you lost 1,000, but you still left $5 up. That's still $5 better than you walked in with. Right. Well, anyway, so I sat down while you were going to wander away and get money out of the ATM.
Yeah, that was a fiasco.
Which was a whole nother mess. And yeah, I sat down. There was one other gentleman at the table. A fresh shoe was starting, and we were the only ones there. I cashed in $200, doll hairs. And of course, received then the 8 chips, and I think it was 11 hands, because I feel like I won one. I guess I'd have to read. Maybe it was 12. I don't know. It was the classic case of like, and I don't always play by the book. I know this, but even when I did this time, pretty much every single hand, it didn't matter.
No,
it did not matter, and that's frustrating because isn't there something about the stats? I'd have to Google this. I don't know this, but I thought it's like almost. It's clearly not impossible to win anything, just like you know whatever. But I feel like isn't it almost unheard of to lose 7 hands in a row or something? I don't know what the number is.
I don't know.
I feel like 7's a number.
All I know is that we wandered around that casino for a little while, just chatting and people watching. You saw an open table and sat down, and I realized, like, oh, I've got no cash. Mm-hmm. So I need to go hit the ATM. And do you remember what you said as I walked away?
I said, hopefully, something about, hopefully I'll have this when you get back, or I'll still, something of that nature. Yeah.
I was gone for probably 12 minutes. I went to the nearest ATM.
I was going to say, that might be generous.
Yeah, that might be generous. Like, and I put my card in, and I pushed my button, and it was like, beep, nope, nothing. I was like, oh, that's weird. Try again. I'm like, oh, maybe I got my PIN wrong. I haven't used my card in forever. And it kept rejecting it. I was like, oh, no. Well, and then by then, people were starting to form a line behind me, so I felt bad. And again, I was gone for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 12. I take my card, I'm frustrated. I was like, all right, I guess I'm not getting any cash right now. I walk back to the table, and there's Terry on his last hand, and I get to watch. Literally, I think the dealer had a 3 up or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, how's it going? And he had like 1 chip, and he flipped over an 8. And I was like, oh, look at that. And then I believe the next card, you'd think, oh, he's probably going to get a face card. No, it was like a 4 or something.
No, it was like a 7 or an 8.
A 7 or an 8.
I think he got like another 20 or 21.
He got a 21, I remember.
Yeah.
So it was like 8, 3, and then like a 7 and whatever, a 7 and a 3. And I was like, wow, that sucked. And Terry is just like dude just crushed me.
Yeah, and he crushed the guy next to me.
Correct. He wasn't
as well.
Alone.
There was there needed to be some disruption. I don't know. what do they all say out there? Something in the Matrix? I don't know. There needed to be some disruption that did not happen. I guess at the end of the day, it's all my fault. I'm the one that cut the cards. He offered me the cut, so I sealed my own fate.
And it's so funny to think like had I been able to get back like 3 minutes earlier.
So basically, you owe me.
I just sat down and maybe it would have
disrupted
the flow of cards.
All of them.
And maybe you could have made a comeback.
You owe me $200.
Maybe I'd say only like $150. But it turns out I couldn't get cash because we later found out when I examined my card that my
You're
ATM
rolling around on an expired ATM.
My ATM card expired in February. Shows how much I look at it or need it or use it for that matter, because everything's like Apple Pay or credit card these days. I don't use my debit card, and so I couldn't get any cash out. So I left the casino technically down $1.75.
Yeah. I was going to say, you were up more than me. Which
I was never up because I put in $1. You and I looked at that game. I put in $1 and I tried to bet because it was a penny slot. And I couldn't even let him. It wouldn't even let me because I didn't have enough I didn't have enough pennies in to bet like a certain thing. So I had to put another $1 in, and I won like 25 cents or something at one point. And upstairs I have a 25-cent voucher, which I'll never turn in.
Give me it. I'm going tonight after the show.
I will give
on my way home. I'll cash in that 25 cents.
If I find it upstairs, if my wife hasn't thrown it away.
I need it.
But that was our experience at the casino. Then we walked around the casino for a bit more and chatted, and that was really about it. Nothing super eventful, but just a funny. I was so disappointed because I even thought as I was driving home, I'm like, I really wanted to play.
Yeah. Well,
and now I probably won't go back for a long time, but
I'll go tonight. You want to give me money? I'll play on your behalf.
Not after what you just went through. Not after what I watched your
there's no way it could happen again, man.
No, man.
Like if I all right, how about this? You guys super chat all the money that you want me to take to the casino tonight. And then I'll share it with all of you next week. See?
Yeah, that's clever, Terry.
Isn't it? I'm just saying.
Very clever.
We could make this happen. So, it was brutal. And I can understand when if you play bad or you get burned here and there. It was just there was no winning. I often share, sometimes I see whether it's the TikToks or the Reels, you'll see somebody go through a bad beat of like 7 or 8 hands in a row where they just keep getting railed. And then like there's a little piece of me that's like, yeah, been there, done that. Like sometimes
that can just
clearly
happen.
That's how it just happens. And what I always think is, God, just one card off of that disrupts that whole nasty system.
I thought the same thing as I'm driving home. I was like, God, and I truly thought, I'm like, I wish I could have sat down. I wish I would have got my money and be able to sit down and pay me. If it would only take me like 4 minutes to get the ATM, maybe you would have had half your money and something could have been disrupted and all that money would have gone to me.
And it's also interesting that, as many of you know that have been to any casinos, there is a little song and dance. There's this showmanship that sometimes goes along with your dealers, and are they there for like the business of like, we're ripping through cards, we're ripping through decks as quickly as possible. You're like, just, I'm saying, super quick dealer. Then there's people that are just taking more time with it and having a little bit more of that camaraderie and whatnot with the people at the table. I think it's all about reading the table. It's probably a little bit about your style. It didn't feel any better that this guy in particular
he was ripping
just
through?
Ripping. Like, he couldn't get the hands out quick enough, and he couldn't have hardly taken the money any faster than what he did.
Yeah, I specifically
Which
recall,
makes it less fun.
It does. I specifically recall,
because I wanted to swear at him.
As you stood up after your last hand, and you were kind of like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
And he just had zero smile. Like, there was no personality. There was, and again, this is like 1 a.m. I can understand depending on how long he's been there.
I get it. I mean, he doesn't have to be my best friend, but there's an entertainment value to the overall, experience. And I've of course been to Vegas 24 times, and been to other casinos and whatnot. And just sometimes it's more enjoyable than others, believe it or not, to lose that money. And for him just to, I was going to say he was taking my money like it was his job.
Well, yeah, technically.
Wait a minute. I don't
technically
know
it was. Ed asks, is blackjack the game with the best odds towards the player, like 49%? I think you're right. If you play perfect, it is like 49.51. I don't know if that includes like Hold'em, because you're not technically playing against the house. You're playing against other players, and then the house just takes a cut.
Yeah, against the casino, though. Yes, that and or they say that not Pai Gao. What's the one with the dealer and the banker? That's not.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Rummy? War?
No.
I don't know, Terry.
What am I thinking of?
Not crap.
Baccarat.
Oh, Baccarat.
Duh. I've never played that. I've watched a few things on. They say that's almost as well, almost a 50-50 split. The thing with Baccarat that I don't love is if you're going to do that, you might as well just play War. Well, for the casinos that offer War. Like that's essentially a coin flip. And
okay.
As far as I know, and again, I could be very ignorant to this, so please correct me, but in Baccarat, like, there's no skill to that. You're picking dealer or banker, and you're one or the other. You win or you lose, and you have roughly a 50-50 chance. Same thing if you're playing War, you just have a 50-50 chance, so to speak, if you're going to win or lose in someone playing them. At least, although your odds are still that roughly 48-49% in blackjack.
And someone said that's if you're playing single deck blackjack.
Yeah, single deck blackjack. If you're doing that, there just feels like so much more involvement and decision making, and then strategies that you either want to veer from or you don't. But there's so much more to it. In Baccarat, again, unless I'm wrong, it's just 100% luck. It's your dealer or banker, flip a coin.
Okay.
I've played a little bit of War just because there's some silly appeal to it.
Yeah.
I've played War in Vegas many years ago, and it just feels so dumb. Like, okay, let's flip over a card.
That's how I feel about you and I chatted and joked about the slot machines. That's how I feel about the slot machines. It's just
I think that's totally different.
I don't know.
Because your chances in slots are lower than even in 50-50. It's way lower, and you're right in that there's no decision making.
That's what I'm saying. There's no decision making as far as that goes. It's just cool. I'm gonna put my money in, and I don't know what the legal, because the casinos have to have a legal payout for casinos. You can't.
Yeah, correct.
And I don't know if that is 48%, 49%.
Oh God, no.
Lower? Is it lower than that?
It's way lower. Oh
is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Required limits for slot machine payouts are. They say the slot machines are the worst.
Okay.
Are your worst winning percentages in all of the casinos, yet there's more of them than any other game.
Because they're easy. And they require no skill. You just put money in and push a button. Like it's not even, at least even like video poker, there's a little bit of skill.
Oh, for sure.
But as far as like slots, and that's why I could just never get into slots. And when you and I were walking past that one machine, I'm just like, I feel like I need to put like $1 or $2 in. And that's what I did. I looked for the penny slot that I could just drop $2 in, push a button, and there's a guy with like a vampire or a devil, and I was like, oh, cool, I don't know what I just did.
You never do.
And it's just like, cool, it gave me 25 cents on this roll, and then I did it again, and I lost. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's it. And I just, that's, like, it's not like the old slots that I recall where it was like,
pulling the lever?
Yeah, pulling the lever, and you 7, 7, 7. Now there's so many.
Oh, there's a million lines to play.
And you're just like,
I've sat and watched others play slots literally for hours combined. I usually have still no idea what's going on. I just know when they get to a major or a minor bonus, and then they get the free spins. Like, I can sit and watch that. We watched a lot of people win when we were in Peoria last year. It's almost a ritual to go to the Riverboat Casino when you're at the Ledgestone event.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of our top players go there. If you want to run into a top player, there's a good chance you'll, some of them, the ones that gamble anyway, they'll be there on one of the nights during the Ledgestone event. And I sat and watched, because they have multiple levels, and I sat and watched somebody just ringing them up. I don't know if it was like 13 or 14 grand or something like that. So it's cool for people that win. Slots. I've put probably less than $100 into slots in my life, combined with 100 casinos visit.
I would probably say the same thing, because I don't think there was one night, maybe my early 20s, that a friend of mine, way back, a friend of mine and I went to the casino, and she wanted to play slots, and so I think maybe that night I dropped $50 into a slots.
You baller!
And I mean, again, this is the early 20s. I didn't have a lot of cash, and the slots were cheaper. I mean, that's just the general slot was cheaper. I don't remember what happened, honestly. I'm sure I lost just based on it. Carney says that the slots are set at 35% payout. So
I think that's probably
generically like Vegas or something.
Yeah, that's probably a very generic setting. Somewhere in that realm. Maybe it's 32 to 38, but
yeah,
I know they can all be set differently. So, which is crazy.
Yeah. Anyway,
how loose those slots are. You know, when I was in my 20s and I had some loose slots. Those were the days.
Those were the days. Yeah.
those were some of the best days.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Either way, I probably won't go. I probably won't go to Potawatomi for another 10 years now or something. But I do now, for whatever reason, I do have an itch to play, but not like blackjack. I want to go play Hold'em because I haven't played in forever. And you and I walked past the gaming room and didn't actually go in. But it used to be a 1-2 limit table. Now with the lowest one is 3-6. And I was saying, well, at least you could, in theory, get, like, if you brought $200 like you did, a 3-6 table that's $9 a round. You could, if you didn't ever make a bet, go an hour with that money versus.
Shit.
But you could also
I'll do that tonight.
But you could also think you're going to win the first hand, put in most of your money, and then be out, as opposed to a $25 bet where that's it. You could suddenly be down like $50 on one hand because you go 6 or whatever that number is, and you could run through it probably just as quick if you really truly tried. I don't know. It's been a long time since I played Hold'em. I had the itch to play because we went into the casino, and probably glad that I couldn't. Because when I was younger, there were a few nights that I spent like into the wee hours of the morning there.
Good question on the board was, I wonder how many people are betting on disc golf right now that it's been out for some time. That's a great question. I'm guessing there's no good way we'll ever know like all of those stats or numbers or details. I don't think that we're beholden to knowing them, but it is a good question. And knowing that we have a couple of different platforms that are accepting of said bets, and then you have something like Cool Bets that I saw over in Estonia last year as a large sponsor of the Estonian Disc Golf Festival. I don't know. I think I'm going to make a huge bet or two on Cool Bets in Estonia this year, and then I'm going to go out on the course and F with the bets myself. Like, I don't know what that loud noise was while you were putting Silver.
It's weird that I bet worse on Silver and Gannon.
Yeah. And
to find out who's in the same group, and then you bet against them, and you are just the worst human.
If it's worth enough money. I'm just kidding.
Well, right now, I don't know about Cool Bets, but in the U.S., they are limiting the bets. And I just checked Underdog, which is where I put a couple bucks in just to play. The lines, so to speak, are not released yet. Otherwise, I was going to live on the air.
For this weekend?
For this particular weekend, which is strange. Well, I don't say strange, but the event starts on Thursday.
I don't know what events aren't, but not every DGPT event is eligible, right?
I think it's every DGPT event, but not every major.
I don't think so.
I'm
guessing it's subject to that particular state.
You think so? Oh,
yeah,
that could be.
And so I'm not saying they're not this weekend. I'm just saying if they're not for any given weekend, I won't be surprised by that. And I'm sure there's probably this is all in a press release that we should have read months ago, but
nah,
that's my guess. Is that it will not be in every, it will not be for every single event, even excluding majors. I know it won't be for majors, but I don't think it will be for every Pro Tour event. All right, let's read some stuff off the board where Ed says, I won $500 on slots after 3 pulls on a $1 Wheel of Fortune machine. Yeah, and
I heard a lot of people like the Wheel of Fortune machines. That's the one thing I've heard about casinos. It's the only machine.
I'm a big fan of the Raging Buffalo machine. I see a lot of those.
Really? I've never.
And then there's
never heard of that one.
There's one. I can't think of it. It's themed with a bunch of gold coins, which is probably a lot of them. And these, I don't know. There's a lot of them out there.
I bet. You and I had said when we were walking through the casino, because there's all sorts of video boards talking about the Brewers, and this is just up the road from AmFam Field. Almost called it Miller Park. AmFam Field. That I'm like, I wonder. I'm kind of shocked that there's not a Brewer themed, or even any athletic themed, sports themed slot machine. I'm like, oh, but then again, I don't know how much Major League Baseball wants to play into that particular thing, because I could see that being popular. You know, you're in Milwaukee having like, oh, I'm going to play the Brewer slot or something. I just gave them $100 in tickets. Let's give them another 100 in slots. But there's nothing like that. So.
I don't want any collusion. I don't want any shadiness with my gambling. That's for sure, because I doubt that would happen.
Everyone that gambles is on the up and up, Terry. That's what I learned.
That's why I'm going to the casino right after this. To say that it's on my way would be a correct statement. There's a couple different ways that I could get back to my house from where you live, but it's the most preferred route for me to take home. Takes me right past the casino.
And you would it's 5 minutes off, not even 5 minutes off the highway if you were to jump.
And fun fact, at one point, I was on the rooftop of that casino multiple times, and in the HVAC areas, and in most of those casino bathrooms.
That sounds really weird and creepy.
I think almost every bathroom in that casino I've been in multiple times.
Again, without explanation, I know what you're talking about, but that does sound weird and creepy.
There is a little bigger backstory is there's a company that creates, there's a couple of these, but there's one in particular that creates custom scent.
Oh, you create custom scent too.
I do as well, but for lots of different places. So when you go into, I'll say essentially any casino, as a good example, movie theaters, you go into a Goodwill, they all have a particular smell or scent to them, and those are oftentimes a professionally crafted, sometimes proprietary, sometimes not, but a crafted scent that is specific to that store. And one of the larger players in that market is called Prolitech, and they are located literally just a few hundred feet away from the casino, which just was a total coincidence. But Prolitech as a company had accounts in hundreds of different locations all around Wisconsin. And in the last 15 years, while I was doing other disc golf promoting, I was also an independent contractor to them for maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
And I was going to various locations to replenish this bottle of highly concentrated scent. And so that's why I know, for instance, that to the 27 different Goodwills in southeastern Wisconsin, they all received fresh scent, I think was the name of what theirs was. And some of the high-end hotels would have, one had cut grass was the name of their scent, others, various scents. And when you went to Potawatomi Casino, I would go up onto their onto their rooftops and into their various areas, and then they had these machines that were then connected to their heating and cooling systems, and those were like the big, like essentially almost like industrial sized gallon ones, the scent, and I would plug it into that. They had it all set up, and that's what would then blow that scent into the casino.
So you're like part of the Illuminati that is really just,
bingo,
dousing these people in there and enforcing them to gamble.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'm the one that would go and I took out all the windows in the casino so nobody could see
and the
daylight and all the clocks. Yes. But they had, and then they had the smaller, they were about 9 by 9 by 4 inches. So if you go into a lot of bathrooms, sometimes you see like a Johnson & Johnson or some other generic brand.
Generic brand. That's the noise it makes.
And they would spit out every 15 minutes or every half hour, whatever the case is. Anyway, at a lot of these places, I would then also go replenish the ones in the individual bathrooms as well. So what a phenomenal gig, because they only needed it. Most of these needed to be replaced every 6 to 8 weeks, and they were very flexible on that timing. So if I'm gone at a World Championships, I'm here for this time or that time, I had like a 2 or 3 week window to hit up all these different places, and I got paid very, very well to show up, walk into a Goodwill with my ladder, swap out all 3 of them. Usually in most Goodwills, for instance, I'd swap out all 3 of the containers, and I'd be back out in 15 minutes, and be on my way to the next one. And I got paid very handsomely to do those. So fun side gig. And when you go to places that have either a distinct smell or they don't stink like you think they would, they probably have some form of professional scent or distribution or something of that nature. So, including Goodwills. I've never looked at any Goodwill outside of the U.S. Out of Wisconsin. I gotta wonder if they use a generic one or if they also use the same company. I'd be curious, but
just go in and ask.
Well, I could just go in and look around on the, where they would be mounted on the sides of the walls. I'd be kind of curious. So, if you ever wonder, like, why does a Goodwill not smell like what you think it would smell like?
Like musty old clothes is what you would think.
Yes, that's exactly why. All the clothes are. Do they spray everything for bed bugs? That I don't know, Carney. I can't say any of that. Yeah, I'm a chemtrailer. That's exactly.
Oh yeah, the chemtrails.
That makes more sense.
You did used to hang off the back of airplanes and just drop things into the sky with that same thing.
That's true.
It was a weird gig, but
yeah,
it's like not Tom Cruise.
It's not as weird as my one of my favorite conspiracy theories that I have to touch on quickly. Did you know?
Oh, geez.
I don't know if you knew this. I was informed. It was reiterated to me that a number of people, and I'm just going to name off a few that I remember were listed in this Instagram reel where I get all my information.
Yeah. Even you saying this out loud, I feel like it's going to infest my
Did you know
feed.
That the likes of Bill and Melinda Gates,
who are divorced?
Yes, doesn't matter. Bill and Melinda. Barack and Michelle, which that's if you're not buying into the conspiracy theory that she's a man and goes by Michael. But we're going to go with Barack and Michelle. Barack and Michelle Obama, the Gates, the
Gettys, the Rothschilds,
the Clintons, Hillary, along with Bill.
Colonel Sanders. Ooh,
along with
eyes.
Jill and Joe Biden. And those are what, 8 or 10 off the top of my head that I know for sure are listed. I don't know how you're going to take this. I really don't, but they're all dead.
That's unfortunate.
Yes, they're all dead. And those are all actors. Those are all being currently played by actors. I think 2020 or 2021, they were all executed was the official term. They were executed.
What kind of feed do you have?
And all of those people, along with like a half dozen others, those were all executed, all those people. And what you see on stage or in person or in a podcast or in a movie, doesn't matter. All those are actors.
Why not?
And I'm just going to say this. I'm not fucking kidding when I am sent this and somebody believes this and would bet their house on
Why
it.
not just tell people that you don't think that it's AI? Like at this point now you can just say, no, that's not true. They're AI. Like if you want to make things up, like literally, again, I'm afraid I want to keep my phone away from you. Just the mere fact that and I know it's not you particularly, but that idiocy is going to spread to some feed. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like,
wake up. You need to wake up is exactly what I've been told. Just wake up. So, if you subscribe to that, more power to you. I have a hard time at that point taking anything you want to tell me at face value, but a disc golf friend, disc golf adjacent, originally a disc golfer, feeds me all of her conspiracy theories, and I can't even say that one tops the charts. Honestly, I've forgotten about that one for a while, but she resent it the other day. Besides Khloe Kardashian and a couple of other top notable women and men, but notable women in particular, who at the night shape shift into lizards and then they come back. I know that one's been around for a few decades, but shape shift and they're actually lizards. I can't even say it. It's incredible.
Yeah. I need to watch So I Married an Axe Murderer again, because it's earlier when I was joking about the Gettys and the Rothschilds and Colonel Sanders with his wee beady eyes. It's one of the funniest movies in the last 30 years. I nearly cry laughing at it because the guy's Mike Myers, who plays his own father, of course. It goes off about is it the Pentaverate? I forget exactly how it is, and how these are the people that are running the world. And he's a conspiracy theory guy, and this was obviously, this is the 90s, so it's pre-internet, and it's just funny how that stuff goes around it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to force my kid to watch that because it's so funny. I
can get behind questioning a few things from time to time. I really can. Like, not every clearly.
Should always question authority. Period. That's what I say.
I will. I can get behind that. But when you want to tell me that all those people have been executed, and we are seeing actors playing those roles on a daily basis, and you are telling me that, for example, Kim Kardashian turns into a lizard, she shapeshifts into a lizard, and then
God, I wish we had shapeshifters. You know how cool and science fiction-y that would be?
I'm just saying.
I mean, if I were a shapeshifter, this is what I'd be saying, because I don't want to lead anything on. But I'm just saying how cool. I love science fiction.
Well,
this is so gosh.
Fiction, I think, being keyword there.
Sure, Terry. Wink.
Yeah. So.
All right, we're gonna move off that because that topic is just it's brain numbing.
Yeah,
They Live is another great one, Tim. I haven't. I could probably I'd show that to my son.
I will just say this is not an active, frequent disc golfer, and no, I'm guessing nobody would even know. She very much was in the scene a while ago, so it is not someone. It is not Cat Merch. It is not anyone that any of you would.
Is
really
Kelvin
know.
a lizard person? You can tell me. You would know.
I mean,
I'm going to take that as a yes because you didn't answer right away.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. When you finally wake up. All right, we've got giveaways. Why don't we focus on?
Yeah, something. We do have giveaways, Terry. Patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. You can be eligible for our weekly giveaway. We're going to do 2 giveaways tonight because you were in Mexico last week, so we didn't do a giveaway. But this week we're going to do 2. There are 104 people eligible for our giveaway. Terry Miller, I'm going to bring up the screen. I want you to tell me how many times should I hit that generate button to get a number?
We're going to hit the button generate thing number 3 times and then 2 more. So 3 times for the first number and then 2 more after that for our second number.
Is that the special Illuminati click? No one can see that because the screen's up, so don't worry.
Dang it. You
see
my gang signs?
You can't show that because you'll get kicked out of the club, which is why I hid it so you wouldn't get kicked out.
You were just protecting
All
me.
right, so 3 times, then 2 times. So our first number is 69, dude. 92, dude. And 60. So the number is 60.
The number is 60.
I sorted it by first name because I was lazy, and I didn't feel like sorting it by anything else.
That's
so I'm
lazy.
going up to 60, and it is
wow,
Madison Walker.
It's been a minute.
Hey,
nice.
Mads. We can probably give that right to her at USCGC in a few weeks.
USWDGC.
Or USWDGC,
yes, we can.
Yeah, we'll give that to you. Madison Walker. Thank you for being a supporter, Madison. As always, if you're listening.
She doesn't even realize it's coming out of her account. She's made all that MVP money now.
Rolling in MVP money.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
geez.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Madison.
very much, Madison Walker.
She honestly, when we tell her that she wants, she'll be like, I give money to you guys.
That's why you just have to give her a disc. Don't tell her she won.
Right.
Just like, hey, Madison, don't want her to go and take it out of her account.
We
love you so much, Madison.
We're big fans, and we thought you should have this.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you do is you buy one of her discs and turn around and give it to her. Buy her tour series and give it to her.
It's a good call.
I know. I'm so smart.
You are.
Aaron,
right. Aaron, good night. We appreciate you being here, buddy.
All right. We're going to generate 2 more numbers.
2 more numbers.
The first one is 63.
Wow, in the 60s again.
And the final one is 64. So we had 69, 60, 63, and 64.
Damn. 4 out of 5 numbers in the 60s.
All right.
Okay.
And we're not in our 60s yet, so All right, so I don't need to scroll. It's Matt Stolers. Matt Stolers, congratulations. Thank you. You've been a Patreon supporter for a long time at the $5 level. And so much appreciation
to you. And that
to you.
name doesn't ring a bell as if you've won any time recently at all. So, Matt, we very much appreciate it. And glad to see it going to a new guy out there.
No, he's not new. He's been
not
with us
new,
for
but
a long time. But a different name that we haven't pulled in a while.
Ed, yes, it's so rigged against you. Ed, you needed it to be in the 30s?
Ed Root was 34.
Yeah. Ed, see?
Yep.
Ed, be lower number or a higher number.
Ed, next week if you want, you can tell me how to sort it.
There you go.
We got by first name, by email, by address, by amount total given, given per
week
episode, per week, by zip code. I can sort it. By state, I could sort it any way you want, Ed. I'll let you
we're
pick.
A regular spreadsheet sorting fools over here.
I know how to sort spreadsheets.
You do.
It's my gig.
It's so impressive.
I know. That's what I roll. That's how I roll. That's how I generate.
Yeah, it is. I want to quickly say, I should have said it 3 hours ago, but real quick, with some of the announcement and news that came out last week regarding the Southeast Asia Tour, it's officially released and available. Information is out there regarding all the different stops that are taking place. I know there was a little frustration expressed. I read some by a couple of the countries that do not have representation on the tour this year. I had no part of that, but what I can say is, it's like any other tour, it's any other organization. If you continue to do good things and put on high quality events, it seems like a no-brainer that you'll be involved. I'm sure that they're going to look at the process, the qualifications, whatever, and I think we're going to continue to see that tour evolve and grow, as we know there's a lot of other quality events and people and places out there. I know there was some frustration from a group in Thailand and the Cambodia guys and Malaysia. Again, I can't speak to any of it. I don't make any of those official decisions, but as a person who's been to all of those places, I look forward to figuring out the best way for people to be included and to be part of an overall awesome experience. That is the Southeast Asia Tour. It's out there. We'll talk about it maybe more next week, because I feel like I do need to give you some more specifics to it. But it's already, the dates are set, which is really, like, if you're looking at, obviously not just the calendar, but then looking at booking and getting yourself set up for early 2026. If you have questions about some of those countries, I would like to think I could be relatively helpful, at least with regard to the events that we're seeing in Thailand. Those are the ones I'll have most insight on. But if I don't know the answer, I know the guys who do have the answers. So I'd be happy to do that. With all that being said, perfect timing then for you to watch what happened at the Samui Swine Classic and at the Chiang Mai Open and in Cambodia. All of those videos are going to be released between now and basically this time next week. So my channel, some fresh content. It hasn't been released yet, and it's all going to be releasing starting tomorrow morning or starting Wednesday. You're going to see first round of the Samui Swine Classic, and then you'll see that for the next few days, then Chiang Mai, then Cambodia. Be on my channel. If you're a Patreon supporter, you'll probably get it early, and or a YouTube member. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So thank you to everyone. White Lotus, I think I got to go watch it. Everybody keeps referencing White Lotus, and it's, I think, shot in Samui or one of the islands of Thailand, so I have no idea what it's about, really. So it seems like at some point I'm going to have to go watch it.
I don't think anyone mentioned White Lotus. He was talking Lotus 123, which is a spreadsheet application.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say White Lotus.
But you can say White Lotus as well.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with.
Yeah.
I used Lotus 123 back in the day.
I know, so did I. I have seen the first 2 seasons of White Lotus. I've not seen the final, or not to say the final, but the 3rd season yet, which is the newest one.
The 2nd season is Thailand, right? Is that where they are right now? Right? Like Koh Samui or Koh something or other?
I don't remember. They're
okay.
Like I think the first one they're in Hawaii. The second one they might be in.
I think it is
Thailand or Koh Samui or something. And then I don't know where the 3rd season is.
Oh, okay.
3rd season it just finished up like a couple weeks ago.
Ed, my next couple of gigs, to answer your question about when I'm with DGN, we're still waiting. It looks like I am scheduled for the weekend of the U.S. The Preserve. The Preserve is next, which is the 12th. Excuse me, the 13th through the 15th, and then of June, and then here in Wisconsin, I will be the in-field, on-course reporter, whatever you want to call it, field reporter person for the United States Women's Disc Golf Championship, which is about an hour and a half north of where, well, only an hour and some from where Johnny and I are right now. So
I'll be the guy running through the fairways tackling Madison Walker.
So here's your disc.
Madison, you won. Here's your disc. Like in the middle of like hole 3.
I think you should.
Okay.
That would be
just like
awesome.
It's like football tackle her.
I don't want you to injure her.
No, I try not to. I'd like grab her and try to roll on my back or something, but I wouldn't.
This is definitely going to get creepy. And
oh, God, yeah.
We'll get Robert Leonard back on to find out how long you're suspended. All right? It'll all come full circle.
Listen,
all right,
I didn't see anything in the rules about that. I'm just
all right, everyone. We appreciate you guys for joining us again. Thank you to the PDGA rep in Robert Leonard for joining us in the regular show. Hope you guys had a little bit of fun tonight and maybe even learned a thing or two, like why it doesn't stink in Goodwill. For Johnny VM, the Disc Golf Guy, we'll see you next week when you step inside the Smash Box.